We thank you for coming out to attend this first public hearing of the New York State Community Commission on Reparation, Remedies, and Repair. And so my name is Timothy Hogues. I am one of the commissioners. You can't hear me? You want more? Can you hear me in the back? You good in the back? Sound check in the back, y'all good? Okay. So once again, thank you for coming and welcome. We have a speaker sign-up sheet that is floating around for individuals that want to participate as far as providing comments today, live comments. And we also, well, let me do this part first. So logistically, the bathrooms are out the back and to the left if you need to use the bathroom. Obviously, the emergency exits are where you came in those doors. And I will allow for the chair of our commission to address you and speak, and we'll get started.
So first of all, welcome everyone. We are excited to host our first public hearing here in Buffalo. So thank you. I am Dr. Charnel Hawkins, and I am honored to serve as chair of the New York State Community Commission for Reparation Remedies, and I am joined by my fellow commissioners. Some are online, and of course we have the honor of having Commissioner Tim Hogues here with us today, and thank you for hosting us in Buffalo. First, I want to thank Elam Church, and thank you for hosting us here today. It's an honor that we get to share stories, we get to listen and talk about justice and healing today. Today's a historic day, and I'm grateful for everyone's presence. I see we have many people in the back, but if you all could move up, we would appreciate if we could try to get a little bit closer. We're doing a couple of things today. We're taking some video footage so that we can document the work that we're doing and also share with others across the state what a public hearing could look like. So if you could all move up front, we thank you for being here with us today. I want to start out by, before we begin, and then I will put things in the hands of Tim Hogues so that we can properly introduce our distinguished guests that are here with us today. But first of all, we want to acknowledge that if there's anyone here that wants to sign up to speak, there are sign-up forms that are here. And if you could sign up, we want to make sure you have an opportunity to speak. And I'll go through the agenda with you as well. And so the agenda, we will begin with, of course, our greetings and remarks, but then we'll hear a presentation from our local history, and that we'll hear about the harms of enslavement specifically here in Buffalo, New York. And we'll hear some walks around the state as well, but our focus will be here in Buffalo. But I want to take a moment and introduce and welcome our commissioners that are on the screen, and so I will pause and make room for the commissioners to introduce themselves. And I will start with our vice chair who is on, and we are glad to see our vice chair here coming to us all the way from New York City, Dr. Jenkins. We'll make room for you to greet.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chairman Hawkins, Dr. Hawkins, and Commissioner Hogue for hosting at your wonderful church in Buffalo, New York. My name is Dr. Deborah Jenkins. I do hail from the Bronx, New York. I am excited about this presentation today and this public hearing. We are so excited to hear from the community. And I don't want to take much time in introducing myself other than to say I am so ready for us to do this work so that we can make proper recommendations to both the governor and the legislators of our great state. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Tarrant Reed.
Greetings. My name is Commissioner Linda Tarrant Reed, and I bring Buffalo greetings from New Rochelle, New York. Thank you, Commissioner Hogue and Commissioner Hawkins, for hosting this meeting at this historic church. I look forward to the presentation about our story. As a historian, I'm incredibly interested in the history of African Americans throughout New York State. All of this information is very important to our final report. So I look forward to listening and answering any questions that anyone has. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Loree Daniel Favors.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to our chair and Commissioner Hobbs for hosting this evening. I will soon be in a better lit area, but I'm trying to get out of the car from child care drop off. Looking forward to a productive conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to acknowledge and again thank the pastor and the congregation at Elam Church for opening their doors to us today and for allowing us to host this gathering here. It's a privilege to be in this space, and it certainly stands as a pillar of community and faith, and we are grateful. We're also grateful to our partners, our local history, for being today's educators, and we're excited to learn from you and deepen our understanding of Buffalo's unique contributions to our state's history. And so with that, I want to make the floor available to Commissioner Hobbs as he will present on behalf of the Governor of New York State, Governor Hochul.
So before we do that, is the sign-in sheet for speaking, is that floating around? Where did it stop?
We have
Pastor Lewis. So we need that, you have it? Okay. So that clipboard was, yeah, all right, it's making its way. So please raise your hand if you want to sign up to speak so we can get you that clipboard. And on behalf of Governor Hochul, wearing my couple hats, she is excited for this process to take place and the first public hearing to be here in her hometown of Buffalo, New York. So we'll be brief on that. Logistics, after we have our presentation, the reason why we're having a public hearing is because we want to hear from the public. You will have the opportunity to speak for 4 minutes. So you were correct on that, 4 minutes. I will be the timekeeper, and I will let you know when that 4 minutes is up. If you're here and you want to submit something into the record, but you don't want to speak tonight, there's always that opportunity as well, is to be able to submit that into public record. If you're here right now and you don't think you want to speak, but later on you change your mind and you want to speak, just raise your hand and we'll get you on that sign-up sheet. Like I said, we have two different types of meetings. We have a business meeting, and then we have our public hearing, which allows us to be informed by the public and hear the input that you have for us. And so I really want to save the time for you, and so there's not going to be a lot of pomp and circumstance around dignitaries, but I will acknowledge a current County Legislator, Jean Vinal, that's here, and a former chairwoman of the Erie County Legislator Betty Jean Grant, for joining us. So thank you so much. And I believe it's not affiliated, but I believe Chairwoman Grant has some information that she's passing around as well, because this is a community meeting, and so we want you to share information and be a part of it. And throughout the evening, I will continue to remind you that you do have the opportunity to sign up if you haven't signed up already. So thank you, and I'm so glad that you are here today. And if we need additional space, let me know. We'll get more sheets and everything going. So, yep, I'll take care of that. Yeah. So,
Yes. Also, I want to make sure that we make room for other officials. If they're in the room, we want to acknowledge them. We certainly invited folks to be here and be part of this process. Your support today is certainly invaluable, and your voice is critical to the process. As you know, we're the New York State Community Commission for Reparation Remedies, and the community's voice is a major part of the process, as we will use your testimony to inform our report. So today we're going to hear from our partners today, which are our local history, and they are a statewide program dedicated to sharing our local history of civil rights and activism. with communities across New York and through interactive learning, and they're dedicated to empowering communities and helping them to engage in their local history through inquiry, equity, and civil action. And so more than 25,000 New Yorkers from Buffalo to Corning to Westchester and many places have engaged in K through 12 learning as well as community learning and have experienced these interactive workshops. And we're grateful for their partnership today. So today, not only will we learn together about Buffalo's unique history, but we'll learn together, and this will be an interactive opportunity. Afterwards, we will participate in some public comment, and before we do that, I'll provide some ground rules for us to establish and live by as we prepare to hear from one another. And as Commissioner Hogue said, we'll only have about 4 minutes, so we'll be sure to keep time on that. Want to welcome, we do have a court reporter here, and we'll welcome Rose Notes, but they'll be here to capture your public testimony verbatim so that we can use it to inform our report. Any questions before we begin? Certainly want to welcome our history to come to the stage and join us as we prepare for next steps.
So before they come, they can come. Come on. We're not going to stop it. I just want to say thank you, Buffalo, for showing up. I know we have some individuals that came here from Syracuse as well. So thank you, public, for showing up, and I believe they are still showing up. So thank you. This is an important conversation. Yes, Pastor. Yes, sir.
Yes,
It will be.
this is being streamed live on the Commission's website, which is at newyork.gov/reparations. And so if you're texting someone right now, they can watch us live and participate.
And it will be part of the archive. And so all of our meetings are recorded, and you can go back and view them and provide comments and emails and all that stuff. So without further,
any questions before we begin?
Amen.
All right. And we will make room for our local history. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shane Wiegand. I co-direct Our Local History with Keisha James. I'm here tonight because 10 years ago, a fourth grader in my classroom asked a question that changed my life and inspired me to be a part of work for reparations in New York State. They said, Mr. Wiegand, did Martin Luther King Jr. ever come to New York State? Did he come to Rochester or Buffalo? And I said, I have absolutely no idea. I did not learn this in school growing up, but I want to know. Another kid said, well, what about like a Rosa Parks? Did we have a Ruby Bridges in our area? Or what about slavery? Did that happen in New York State? I grew up in the Rochester area. I didn't learn anything about any of those topics. I said to my students, let's figure it out together. Along the way, we started to learn about this rich, terrifying, and deep and powerful history, from enslavement to redlining to the inequity in our community today. And through my students, I became someone who believed reparations is needed and must happen. I'm excited to be joined in this work by an amazing educator who saw an early version of what I was learning with my students and helped take it to the next level, and now in schools all across the Buffalo area, where we've trained every Buffalo public school social studies and science teacher, as well as quite a few in the surrounding Erie County through BOCES. And we'd be honored to share just a little bit of what we've been learning with you tonight. We want your feedback, but we hope it provides a foundation for some of this work, and we hope that we have a chance to learn together and make this something that everyone in New York State says, we need this, this is how we heal, this is how we repair, and this is justice. Thank you for having us. This is Keisha.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Keisha James, and I co-direct Our Local History with Shane. I'm a long-term educator in the Rochester City School District, and I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist in New York State. And so I've had the opportunity to take some of these lessons and bring them, like Shane said, to another level and really make them inclusive for all of our students across the state. We're excited to share some of the work that we've been doing all throughout for the last several years. We are a non-for-profit educational organization that is dedicated to helping folks engage with and empower them, especially when it comes to students, to parents, to community members, around the history of civil rights through the lens of civic action, equity, and inquiry. So I want to say again, thank you to the commissioners and Elam Church for having us tonight. We are excited to dig into some of this work with you all. It will be interactive, like Shane shared, throughout our time together today. And in one moment, you will see slides on that screen. I gotcha. But we are looking forward to having this conversation around the long history of civil rights and especially enslavement right here in the Buffalo area, which connects to the current injustices that we're still seeing today. So at Our Local History, we believe that it's so important to closely examine our own community story. When I grew up in Rochester, yes, sir?
So I'm getting questions. So the presentation is about 45 minutes to the hour, and then the rest of the time is for public comment. So it's not a 4-hour presentation.
Oh, no, absolutely not. We worked all day today. Thank you for that clarification. All right. So we believe a close examination of what happens in our own communities is the most effective ways of moving forward and understanding what civic action we need to take in our own time. And so when I was a student in Rochester City School District, like Shane, I did not learn any of this history. I didn't learn this until I was 30 plus years old when Shane offered a free training to Rochester City School District teachers. And then I taught it to my students, and they were blown away about the things that happened right in our community, right down the street from where they knew, from their grandma's house, from their auntie's house. And they were like, right here, Miss James? I'm like, right here. This happened here. And so when we think about the consequences and the opportunities for civic action today when it comes to the Reparations Committee, we think it's so important to start with the foundation of understanding what happened with that historical context. We have to look at the whole picture versus just looking at what's happening right here in our current times. So this is our team up here at Our Local History. I want to introduce our Communications and Research Coordinator, Justin Murphy. He will be hanging out a little later to answer any questions that you all have after the presentation. So our model, like Dr. Hawkins said, we have done this work all across New York State for the last several years, and our model focuses on restorative practices. So we're going to check in with you and see how you're doing, how you're feeling throughout our time together today. We're not going to tell you what to think. We truly think it's important to put primary sources and history in front of individuals and ask them, what does this mean to you? What questions are coming up? There is no indoctrination here. There is no us telling you what to think or how to feel. And then I really want you to understand this isn't just about a history lesson. It's about how does the history inform what we are doing today? How can we take this history and use it towards civic action? At the end of all of our units of study, when we are working with students, we say, well, what are the problems you see in our community today? And what do you want to do about it? How can we use the strategies that people in the past have used, and how can we apply them to the problems that you think are important today? And we've had tons of students create capstone and civic action projects after learning about their own local history. The work that is going to be shared with you today has been co-created by elders and youth all across the state. This isn't just a group of teachers that got together and said this is a good idea. This truly has been vetted and informed by elders and youth. We think it's so important to make sure if we're talking about a group of people, they are at the table and their voices are being heard and their voices are elevated when we are having these conversations. Our website is called resistancemapping.org. It is open source lessons and resources for the entire community. If you look right here on the screenshot, you can actually click and go right to the Erie County area, and you can have a look at our unit around enslavement and our civil rights unit. It is free, it is open source, it is available for anyone. And if you're familiar with the Rochester area, we have a map on our website that has over 80 different points of resistance in the Rochester area, so students can see exactly what happened where in the community. And I just want to settle us with these group norms. I'm going to read this to you. If we had much more time, we would go through and have y'all turn and talk, but I'm just going to read through these because we're going to have some conversations that may be uncomfortable today. And it's important for us to dig in, but also have a foundational place of safe and brave conversations. So we're going to ask you today to speak your truth, practice using I statements, I think, I believe. Stay as engaged as you can. I'm sure we all had long days, and we want to, if you need to get up, move around, please take care of yourself throughout our time together. Acknowledge that we may experience some discomfort, but when we lean into that discomfort and that feeling, it pushes us towards growing. Acknowledging our intent and owning our impact. I want to say everybody in this room has great intentions, and even with great intentions, we can unintentionally cause harm. So if somebody says something today that's a little uncomfortable for you, instead of making an assumption of what they mean or jumping down their throat or avoiding them and not talking to them, you can say, I'm a little uncomfortable with what you said. Can you explain that? You're meeting them with curiosity versus meeting them with judgment and assumptions. If somebody does say something you said makes them uncomfortable today, you don't have to apologize profusely. You don't have to denigrate yourself. Just thank you for telling me that. I need to think more about that. And if you're not sure what to say, but you want to share, you want to participate, what I'm going to ask you to do is not say, this is a dumb question, but we don't need to say that. Say, you know, this is a first draft. It's letting us know you're not fully forming your thoughts. It's your first draft thought. You're sharing it with the room. You're asking us for some feedback, but you're also asking for grace from us in this space. Accept and expect non-closure. This is normally a 3-hour training that we do, that we're condensing into 45 minutes, so you're just gonna get a small piece of this unit that we do with students and community members. Respect that we're all in different places on this journey. We're leaning into curiosity and moving away from judgment, and then just the support of equity of voices. So we just want to share the space in this room and make space for folks to share if they'd like to. So I'm just going to ask that you hold these norms together and hold these in the front of your mind as we go through our time together today. So we have an inquiry question that we want you to consider as we go through our demonstration today, and it is, how does understanding our local history of enslavement, redlining, and civil rights inform our actions today to repair past harm and make New York a more equitable place? So we don't have an answer to that, and we're hoping that by the time, at the end of our time, we'll maybe get a little closer to considering and answering that question together. All right, so we have adapted what we do with students for adults in our time together today. I do want to note that as you're going around, you'll see when it's time to get up and move in just a second, there are chart paper around the room. Some of the sources you're seeing are not for kids. We do not use them in classrooms. We specifically created more resources for adults so that you can take a look at what history truly was like right here in the Buffalo area, what enslavement was like in the Buffalo area. We think it's so important to tell students from 4th all the way through 12th grade the truth about what's happened, but our goal is not to traumatize them. We're always doing it in a way that is developmentally appropriate for young minds. And so I want to give you a little bit of background, and this is newer information, so I'm gonna take a look at some of my notes because I do not have this memorized, all right? So we want to think about and take a look at this median household income. But before we jump into that, and just thinking about the work the commission has over the next several months, over the time that you will be together, just really thinking about the input around reparations and what that will look like, what it's going to take, what do we have to do. Our intention tonight is not to put forth any specific vision, but to again give you the history and context for you all to make informed decisions about what this should look like in New York State. And so the first thing we have to do is acknowledge the harm, and specifically harm done to Black people. We're going to go all the way back to 1626, when the first enslaved Africans came to New York State. It was systemic. It was codified under law and perpetuated by the most powerful people in the colony, and then the state of New York, from the King of England to governors, mayors, legislators, large business owners, land developers. Second, we have to think about the effects of these racist state policies and practices and how they created unfair economic and political foundation in New York State. Wealth was derived from enslavement, and it shaped institutions that remain in power to this day, from banks to real estate interests to branches of state government and local governments themselves. Third, we have to think about how this harm did not end with the abolition of enslavement. In 1827, New York City was the capital of the largest illegal transatlantic slave trade up until the Civil War. The racial caste system built during this period of enslavement was maintained throughout the 20th century by racist state-sponsored discrimination in many areas, particularly in housing. When we think about redlining or racially restrictive covenants that were put on thousands of homes, devastating the impact on places like the east side of Rochester, east side of Buffalo, where we stand today. So we're seeing the legacy of this. We're seeing the legacy of these policies. The history that we're going to tell here is not just a story of the past. It is a story of our present. Generations of Black and Indigenous people in New York State have endured consequences of enslavement, segregation, discriminatory housing practices, and other forms of institutionalized racism. These policies didn't just harm individuals, they eroded the social and economic foundations of entire communities, creating long-lasting cycles of poverty and disenfranchisement. When we examine these histories, it becomes clear that it's not isolated incidents, but deliberate policies that still impact today. So if we even take a look at the wealth gap, so the median household income for a white family in New York State is $276,900 compared to $18,000, almost $19,000 for Black families in this state, and this is from 2021. Even thinking about New York State and where that name comes from. So that name comes from the Duke of York, who was in England. So York was a place in England. The Duke of York, he later became King James II of England, and he is most known for creating the Royal African Company. So when we take a look at this wealth gap, you're noticing, and I can put it in simpler terms, for every $1,000, a median $1,000 that a white household has, the median amount that a Black household has is $68.17. We're seeing the legacy here, right? We're seeing the policies that have impacted this. So our intention tonight is not to get into this deep economic history of the 17th century England or to advocate for changing the name of New York State in any way. We simply want to invite you to consider how what you see right on the screen may or may not have influenced what you see to the left. Right, so thinking about the history and the legacy over, if you're looking at some of the things when it comes to the Royal African Company, some of the information from 1662 to 1731, over 200,000 Africans were kidnapped, and you can see how many folks died on the voyage over here to the New York City area, and really thinking about, again, the legacy and the impact that we're seeing today. So I'm going to jump in really quickly to explain what we do with young folks. So when we start the unit on enslavement with students in classrooms across the state, we always start with Africa. We start with an asset-based approach because Black history does not start with the period of enslavement. And I know when I was a fourth grader in school, that's what I thought because that's all I read in the books and that's what I saw in my textbooks. That is not the truth. We did not come from quote-unquote slaves. That's not true. So what we do with students is we start with these images of kings, of queens, of architecture, of religion, of power, of brilliance, of beauty, to help them understand what was taken from this land, from universities that thousands of folks all across the community have attended, to these beautiful high Atlas mountains in North Africa. We have them take a look at the dye pits, the art, the beauty, the brilliance. We have them think about, what do you notice, what do you wonder when it comes to some of this art? What questions are coming up for you? Thinking about medieval cities like Great Zimbabwe, or even current day cities like Johannesburg, South Africa. We have the students notice and wonder, and then we jump into the next couple of days of what enslavement was like right here in New York State. So we're gonna start with some vocabulary terms, and then I promise we're gonna get y'all up and moving. We are not gonna talk to you for 45 minutes straight, I promise.
So in the second, we're going to dive into our inquiry, where you're going to explore some local and statewide sources. But to help you do it, we want to offer a little bit of language that we found is really powerful in how we talk about this. The first is this term enslaved person instead of slave. No one is born a slave. No one chooses to be a slave. It is something done to. So a person who is enslaved starts to make a little more sense than slave, is something we found in our classroom. For example, Austin Stewart was enslaved in Sodus, later Bath, New York, and Steuben County, just down the road. He escaped along Canandaigua Lake with his friend Millie. He eventually opened the first black-owned business in the Rochester area. We would argue he was an enslaved person. On the flip side is this term enslaver. Instead of master, we find enslaver more accurate because this person made a choice. An individual who chooses to buy, sell human beings, force them to work for no pay. Buffalo Congressman Peter Buell Porter and his wife, they chose to enslave 5 people in the city of Buffalo.
Another example of enslaver is the Lieutenant Governor, Governor Cortland, who chose to enslave people at his estate in Westchester County. Cortland County is named for this individual. We shift from runaway to freedom seeker because we believe that it's everyone's human right to be free. And so our definition to consider is African Americans who bravely risk their lives to escape from enslavement. So this is William Wells Brown. He was an abolitionist, a playwright, a novelist, and a historian. He was born into enslavement, and at 19, he successfully sought his freedom. He eventually moved to the Buffalo area where he helped other freedom seekers on the Underground Railroad from his home at 13 Pine Street.
Another example from across the state in this area is James Foreman. We don't have a picture of him, but he came from Virginia. He crossed the Niagara Falls Suspension Bridge into Canada in 1856 and was one of the many freedom seekers who passed through Western New York on their way to Canada. And like many, came back under a different name, and at different times people moved back and forth from Buffalo, Rochester, St. Catharines, depending on the brutality of local police departments when different things were happening, when it was safe or not to be in those locations. And then our final term is just racist policy. The reason people could be enslaved in New York State, like Thomas James or Austin Stewart or Millie and so many others, was because of centuries of laws that created and uphold inequity between racial groups. For example, in 1712, the province of New York's assembly passed a law that required a 200-pound security charge plus a 200-pound annual fee for manumission, a large financial penalty against enslavers for allowing any enslaved people to go for their freedom. You're going to see a number of other laws like this as you explore our gallery walk in just a minute.
All right, so we're gonna have y'all get up and moving in just a second. I just wanna explain what you're gonna do first, and then we're gonna pass out some sticky notes to you all and some pens if you need them to go around and jot down things that you notice and wonder. So along this wall and all the way over here, you'll see these chart papers. And what we want you to focus on is this question of what is this document telling us about enslavement and how people resisted? And then the second question to consider is how does this primary source inform our work for reparations? And so when you get these sticky notes, Justin and Shane are getting ready to pass these out to you right now. And what you're gonna do on your sticky note is you're gonna read. You can start anywhere you want. You'll read the chart paper, and then on your sticky note, you can jot down something you notice, a question that you have, a way that you feel, or just something that's coming up for you, a thought in your mind. You'll jot it on the sticky note and then stick the sticky note right to the chart paper. So anything you notice, a feeling, a question, or just anything that's coming up when you're taking a look at that specific source. And so if folks don't, or maybe mobility is an issue or you're not feeling like moving around, we've got some paper copies we'll come and pass out. But we're gonna encourage folks to get up in just a second and start moving around. And go ahead.
We're also gonna make sure that if you would prefer something very large, we'll kind of switch the slides every minute so you could stay where you are. But our hope is that for this to work, we got to talk to each other, learn from each other, explore, and share. So we hope you get up, you talk, you share, you take sticky notes, we got lots of extra pens, and start adding in what's missing, talking with each other about these stories, these laws, the resistance, what's sticking out to you as you walk around the room and share. And how can we use these local stories from the Buffalo area and across New York State to fight and to win reparations in our communities and to make this happen? So we'll invite you to grab a sticky note. Keisha and Justin are coming around. We got tons of extra pens. And if you want to raise a hand, we can bring you a paper copy of these as well. And in just a minute, we'll start switching the slides so you can have a minute or so looking at each one. All righty. Oh, quick question. Yes. Paper copy? Oh, here. Yep, coming around. All righty. I'll be right there with paper copies. If you would, please feel free to stand up, start moving, or talk with your neighbor as we get going.
Gentleman right there had a question. Go ahead. Oh, you want a copy? Okay. Yeah, okay. I didn't know if you had a question. Well, paper copies are coming around as well. Pens. Where are pens? Where are the pens? All right.
She's got a big pile.
Okay. We'll grab some of those from Keisha.
Are you switching to a group slide or not yet? Paper copies are we're going to switch to a group slide right now. Okay. Sure. I'll do it for you.
So we have paper copies floating around. We have pens hopefully floating around.
Keisha's got the pens. Yeah. Excuse me. So sorry.
Keisha, do you still have pens? You run out of pens? Yeah, everybody's asking for pen. Let me check. No.
Did you run out of? We're gonna find them.
And why are you completing the exercise? And while you're completing the exercise, if folks came in that would like to sign up to speak, please see me. If folks would like to sign up to speak, please see me.
Justin, you got some extra pens?
We We switched the markers.
Oh, switch to
Found the bag
markers.
of
It's been found, God knows where.
Good job. People showed up.
Get some good pictures. We got a good turnout here.
Oh my goodness! I met you at the AKG. Yes. Yes. Hold on.
What do you need?
There's to speak.
Oh, to sign up to speak. Yes, please. You're going to follow it right after.
You have your own.
And I'll put my information on here.
Oh, okay,
Because it's called
good.
HR 40.
HR, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm, Yep.
So.
Yep.
I'll say hi.
Tim, ask the clerk of the pen, because this is not, mine is not right.
Yours not right? Is there something in that orange bag?
I don't know what people
No,
think.
take a look at it.
Commissioner, can you hear me?
Okay.
Commissioner Hobbs, can you hear me?
I can, I'm sorry. Yes? Yes?
This is Commissioner Daniel Favors.
Yes.
I would just like to suggest that you mute the Zoom, as those who approach the microphone may not be aware that it's streaming.
Okay.
As a courtesy, we may just want to mute it, but please do kindly remember to unmute it when we get started again.
Thank you, Commissioner. Daniel Favor. We'll mute.
I think they unmuted for that to make an announcement.
National Reparation Action Days. Get out of here. I did not know that.
Commissioner Hoax, are you able to hear me?
Yes?
I'm just checking in to make sure. It had been a little, do we have a time check as to what time?
Okay, I'll get that time check. I wish you guys could see it here.
I can imagine. And if there, again, with being mindful that we're streaming, if there's no one around the microphone now, it would be great to hear if there is any discussion, formally. But yeah, I can imagine it's amazing.
Can they not see the slides moving?
So, I mean, if, I
We
wish they
see
could
it,
see
yeah.
yeah, see the room.
We've taken a bunch of
Yeah, we've taken plenty of pictures that we'll be able to share with you all.
So we're about to mute out the mics again, like you suggested, and we'll come back with the, shortly.
Do you want to speak? Oh, okay, just for those that want to provide comment or testimony. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
We're going to take about 2 more minutes and come back together. 2 more minutes, and then we'll find our seat. Feel free to do your last comment, and then we'll find our seats.
Check. So, check. So we ran out of physical paper copies, but we are putting up a QR code on the screen at some point, so you'll be able to scan it, and it's coming right. So we'll have a QR code for you to scan so you can have that document.
Yep, we're going to finish our presentation, and then we'll get that going. About 6:30? I would say 6:45. All right, you want to bring them back? All right, let's bring folks back. Okay, everyone, we're going to come back so we can finish our presentation, and then we can make room for public comment. I just want to say, Buffalo, you look great tonight. Thank you for your participation and setting the standard for all of the upcoming public hearings. For those that are not here, this is a great showing of public interest, and we look forward to the comments today. And this is what it takes. It takes your voice, it takes your actions to make this happen. And so we thank you for being here. We can come on back. The archives will still be available to you. You can see the document through the QR code. If you didn't get an opportunity to get a copy of the presentation, you can just scan the QR code and it's available to you. But if you all would come on back to your seats and try to move up closer so that we can finish the presentation and make room. Thank you to those that are online watching. Thank you for being with us today. I understand that there's some watch parties happening. Thank you for your support, and we'll continue to do that. So we'll make our way back to our seats. And if we can come up closer.
Come on up, Buffalo. Come on back. Ross, come tell us what today is, man.
This date was important for a reason.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to announce that today is actually National Reparations Actions Day across America. So it's very mystical, I guess, and divine that with all of the scheduling realities, starting schedules having to switch, having to change, that Buffalo ends up being the first place. And this is also one of the last places that people came to get outside of America, but it's the first place to talk about repair. So congratulations.
All right, yeah, applaud yourself for showing up. It looks like we have everyone back.
So as we're coming back, feel free to scan the QR code. We'll put it back up at the end, and I think Dr. Hawkins will be able to share these on the website if you didn't get to see them all. But to do just a very fast summary before we have you share with a neighbor about which stories stick out, a couple of stories just to emphasize as we go through these slides. That the boats carrying enslaved people coming right to New York. We wanted to understand right from 1620, we see this beginning in the New York State area. Some of the different laws, like being illegal to gather in groups of 3 or more, trading with free citizens without an enslaver's consent. And you'll have time to really dive in deeper if you didn't get to. But the census data is robust for each of these stories. From each county, from each area, the names of each of the enslaved people and enslavers, from the selling of enslaved people in Wall Street. These are just a few of the, we estimate quite almost 100 towns and cities named for enslavers in New York State. To our senators, here are just some of the senators and assembly members who are enslavers all across New York State. So wanted to make sure you kind of see the policy, the systematic level, as well as those individual stories of resistance, of injustice, and people coming together to fight back in so many different ways all across New York State. The genius of the AME churches and the Underground Railroad that would go between them, the leaders, of course, that we all know, like Harriet Tubman, to folks like Thomas James, an AME pastor in Lockport, Rochester, Ithaca, Syracuse, who would connect all of these with Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman. To all of our local papers like these, publishing advertisements for escaped New Yorkers, for their offering rewards for their capture, like Austin Stewart, enslaved just down the road from Buffalo in Bath, New York, in the Geneva Gazette. To these stories of resistance and escape in Buffalo like Williams Wells Brown, like Austin Stewart and his uncle, who was fought in the Revolutionary War as an enslaved person, to the gradual abolition of enslavement. So as we think about these different stories and click through them, the different ways people fought back, we want to invite you to think about that inquiry question we started with.
So how does this history inform the work that we are doing, that you all are here for when it comes to the Reparations Committee, and really thinking about what this actually means to you? So what we would love for you to do is turn to the person next to you and just share with them what was one of the sources that really resonated or stuck out to you. So go ahead, and if you want to turn and talk and share one of the sources that stuck out to you, and really thinking about this question of how does understanding our local history of enslavement, redlining, and civil rights inform our actions today to repair the past harm and make New York a more equitable place. So again, turn and talk, and we'll come back together in about 1 minute.
And if folks didn't get it, the QR code to the slides is right there on the screen for you as well. Take one more minute to share about this question, and then we'll close out. They can, yep.
And I do want to make sure we mention, I didn't call it out, but it was on the wall. Of course, Buffalo's Millard Fillmore, who voted in or signed into law the Fugitive Slave Act, longtime Buffalo lawyer, civic leader. You can read a little more about him here. We'll take about 20 more seconds and come back together. There's the slides with a QR code. Take about 10 more seconds. So I'll do. We're going to come together in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. For our last 2 minutes, we want to acknowledge something else that I wish we had an hour, 5 hours to talk about, but I want to just tell one story that really illustrates it for this area. When enslavement ends in 1827, obviously racism and racist laws did not end in New York State or the Buffalo area. And one law that really sticks out to me has to do with redlining. But before we do that, let's just check in. How are we feeling? And center ourselves with this quote from Douglas.
All right, so this is in the beginning when I talked about the restorative practices we have built throughout our units. We always end each day with asking students how they're feeling about what they're learning, having them share out. So we'd love for you to take a look at, if you look at those colors, the blue, green, yellow, and red, that's called the zones of regulation. And it's a way for students to check in and talk about how they're feeling. And we're human beings, so we can always be in more than one zone at a time. So we've got the blue zone, that will be 1. The green zone will be 2, the yellow will be 3, and then the red will be 4. I will tell you that anytime I look at this history, it puts me in the red zone because it feels very personal. And anytime I'm looking at this history, it's because I'm working. So it also puts me in the green zone because I know that I'm grateful that more people are learning this history. I'm grateful that this will not be new information, hopefully in 10 years, to students and community members. So if you can show us what zone or zones you're in, and I saw somebody is in every zone, they're a 10, and you could be a 10 also. That is okay right now. So if you could show us with your fingers which zone or zones you are in. I see some 3s, some 2s, some 3s, some 4s, 1s, 4s, 3s, 3s, 3s and 4s, 4s, 3s, 3s, 2s, 9s, 4s, 5s, 10s, all the zones, all the feelings. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing. I see a 1 and a 4 in the back. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for that vulnerability. So this last story we want to talk about has to do with one quick example about redlining. Many of you maybe have seen this map. Maybe you know the federal government in 1934 passed the National Housing Act. They allocated through the FHA and VA $119 billion that went to 35 million families to help them own a home for the first time. 98% of those recipients were families like mine who were white folks. One example, though, that maybe you didn't know. When redlining started in places like Buffalo, the federal government hired teams of the leaders of this community. This is one of them. His name was Charles L. Gurney. He's a real estate mogul. He was the president of Buffalo Savings Bank, and he was hired to help go street by street and oversee the creation of maps like this one to mark neighborhoods either hazardous or best. That name might be familiar because his descendants still run his real estate firm today that's one of the biggest in the Buffalo area. This is not ancient history. Our goal is not to vilify one individual. There are hundreds of stories just like this one in this community, in Rochester, and all across New York State. But when Gurney and the other local bankers, and it was almost all of them, the head of your real estate board, got together, they were tasked with carrying out this racist policy. In order to receive government money, you had to follow the law, which said in its underwriting manual that if a neighborhood was to be stable, its necessary properties continue to be occupied by the same social and racial classes. That recommended restrictions should include the prohibition of the occupancy of properties except by the race for which they're intended, and that should be written on the deeds of homes. My fourth graders and I found 10,000 homes that still have whites-only clauses on their deeds in the Rochester area. We found quite a few in the Buffalo area, but we are not done with that search. We'll show you an example in just a second. But first, when Charles Gurney and his friends worked with the government to rate these neighborhoods, and again, we'll share these slides with everyone. They'll be linked at the end. This is how they rated Amherst. Amherst got a green or best rating, meaning if you looked like me, you could go to the bank, and even if you couldn't afford it, they would give you some money to help you buy that house. For example, in 1950, my grandfather could not afford a home in the town of Greece, New York, next to Rochester. The bank said, "Sir, you qualify, though, for a special program." And he was able to purchase that home and move into that house that he couldn't afford. But he used the wealth and the equity from it to buy a bigger house, to invest in his business, to send my mom to college. When he passed, I received a small inheritance from the sale of that home. I did nothing to earn or deserve it. I'm proud that my grandfather worked hard, and yet he got extra help and a handout that the majority of African American and Hispanic Americans did not get. And part of that is this. Look at Amherst. Well protected by restrictive covenants, good landscaping, and supposed pride of ownership. Where we are today in the east side was described by these white men as an extremely old section taken over by Italians and black people of a poor type, described as being infiltrated, right? You can go in depth and look at each of these neighborhoods, each of these covenants. For example, one of the builders of Orchard Park, director of M&T Bank, Harry Yates, put this whites-only covenant on the land and the homes he built. These are just a couple of those stories, right? But for me, when I started to realize that my family story was a part of this, when I started to realize that redlining, like in this 2021 New York State report, continues to this very day right here in previously redlined neighborhoods like the East Side, it made me say, this is something I need to do something about. I got to get involved. I need to share these kinds of stories. And it makes me proud to be a part and honored to be sharing and listening with you all today as we work to create a change.
I want to thank you so much for having us today. We are so happy to be able to be in this space and to just feel pride around sharing this history with you all, and hoping that this helps informs the work that you're getting ready to do over the next couple of months. My contact information is up here, and this is also a website that you can reach out. We would love to come to your school, your organization, your church, and to do something similar to what we did today, to dig in and again share this history. This isn't just about the history lessons. This truly is about thinking about how our history informs what we're looking to do today to create a more equitable, not just Buffalo, but New York State. Again, thank you so much for having us today. We will be excited to reach out and talk with you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. So thank you.
Thank you so much to the team at Our Local History. We are pleased and grateful for their support in sharing the unique history of Buffalo. And we look forward to learning more. For those that are watching online, you can use the QR code to review the slides, and we hope to continue to bring information like this to every public hearing. So right now, it is 6:37. We're going to take a 5-minute break so that we can have an opportunity to help people gather for public testimony, and we are honored that, again, Buffalo had such a great showing. I want to acknowledge, I see my colleague in the room, President Buford from the Buffalo Urban League. If he could stand, thank you for being here tonight. And I know this was important to him, for him to be here, because we both missed a opportunity to join our colleagues in New York City, but this was more important, to be here tonight with you all and having this conversation. So thank you. So with that, I'm going to give it to Commissioner Hogue and allow him to make next steps.
So I also want to recognize we have a representative from Congressman Tim Higgins' office here with us, so thank you for that. So I will do this. What did I say? Thank you. I appreciate it. I was just seeing if y'all paying attention, if y'all zoned out on me. And y'all are awake. Senator Tim Kennedy's office. I believe, I'll get it right. Rewind. Congressman Tim Kennedy's office. All right, it's been a long day. We get it right. We sent an invitation to Mayor Scanlon, but unfortunately, I'm not sure of how many of you are aware, but recently his brother passed away, and so the funeral was today, and so we didn't expect him to be here. So I will ask this: do you want a 5-minute break, or do you want to get right to work? All right, we will get right to work, and here is. Amen. This is for you. So this is the format. You will get, so you signed up. We tried to get you in order that you came in, so you signed up. If you hear comments and you say, hey, you didn't sign up and you do want to sign up, just wave your hand and we'll get to you. You do have 4 minutes to speak. I will be the timekeeper and I will be with you. We just want to be respectful. And someone said, hey, what is this public comment period for? And I said, it's for you to be able to express, share, whatever it is that you would like to share on this topic. So is that good? All right, amen. So we will get started. And I do have, go ahead. Do you have a clock on you? I got my phone. Okay. Yeah, and I do have wipes, so I will be wiping the mics off for you guys.
So if we could, we'll start with the first person, which is Noble, then Samuel, then Alexander, and then Emmanuel. So if you can remember those first 4, and then so we can keep our flow going. And so Noble will begin for us. And if Noble's in the room, thank you, Noble. We appreciate you. And again, we'll have 4 minutes. You'll get a 30-second warning. And if we could all be respectful of the time so that we can make room for everyone in the room. Thank you again, Buffalo, for showing up. And I want to just acknowledge that our commissioners are still here on the call. So if commissioners, if you want to make any comments, please let me know. We'll make room for Mr. Noble. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Noble. I'm in New Elk Bay, 77 years old. I've been at this work 45 years. The reason you're here today is because of work I did back in April the 13th, 1999. And what I did, I walked into Senator DeFrancisco's office, and I said, it seems to be something missing here. And he said, what? New York is not celebrating the 200th anniversary of the abolition of slavery. So they got together and came up with a proclamation, a resolution, and I have a copy of it here that I'm going to give you. And it was dated, it says Senate number 973, and Senator DeFrancisco and a lot of other senators signed on to it, and it says, memorializing, listen to this, Governor George E. Pataki, I got a Republican to do it, commemorated on July the 4th, 1999, the 200th anniversary of the abolition of slavery in New York State at the request of a committee that I put together called the Bicentennial Abolition Day Celebration Committee. So this was done, as you can see, adopted by the Senate April 13, 1999. So when you hear this thing about the conference that was held over in Ghana during that year, that's how I got there. Everything you have here today is because of this. Now, I've been sitting back watching them. They did their little history thing, and that's a shame what they did. I'm hoping that we can do better for the reparation piece. The reason why I'm about this is another gentleman that I met in my life, Malcolm X. He said two things to me that stuck. History is able to reward all research. Listen to that. History, that's what we've been talking about in here, is able to reward all research. And you want to be rewarded. He next said, what we got to do is change our agenda and initiatives from civil rights to human rights. That's what he said. So I took him at his word, especially since they killed him in 1965. At the time, they were supposed to be ratifying some human rights legislation that had been sent to the Congress. They killed King 68 because why? New legislation was being sent to the Congress. Now, there's a book that came out. Most people haven't read it, haven't even seen the book. And it's called The Slave Trade. Since we're talking about slavery, The Slave Trade, The Origins of International Human Rights Law. Now, with that being said, what I tell people is that you have to be careful what you do when you're going into New York. So I put together a thing. As soon as they committee your commission, I'm going to share this with y'all. We need to put it in a PDF file. But anyway, it's over 300. Okay. It's over 300 pages. Wow. And so it's called Connecting the Dots because you have to do the math and connect the dots. You good? Okay. So what I'm going to get at is real simple here. There's a report that came out. Okay, the report that came out called the Lemon Slave Case, another book. And what happened is they raised a regiment, 2 regiments, to defend the state. Listen to this here, before it even became a state. And they raised 2 regiments. They gave anybody that brought a slave to fight for 3 years 500 acres of land. I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. And for everyone that's listening, if you want to submit documents to the commission, you can do so at our website. If you're not here tonight and you want to submit testimony, you can do that at newyork.gov/reparations. Next is Samuel A. Herbert, and I'm sorry, it's hard to read Hambert. Okay. Next is Alexander, nope. Next is Emmanuel Radford. Is Emmanuel here?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Emmanuel, thank you for being here. If you can just say your full name and your affiliation, we'd appreciate that.
You can put it in here. Yeah, can you put it in there? I'm sorry. Oh, you're fine. I appreciate it. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. My name is Emmanuel Radford. I am with the New York Civil Liberties Union, and I am here representing the New Yorkers for Reparations, a coalition of over 70 organizations committed to securing reparations for Black New Yorkers. Tonight, I'm here to highlight three pressing issues that have deeply impacted Black communities for generations: education, environmental racism, and criminal justice. How Black students in Buffalo are educated is a direct result of slavery. Segregated schools are a consequence of white violence and white hatred towards Black children. Black students in New York have faced systemic obstacles due to decades of underfunding and segregation. Since 1883, policies have effectively segregated Black students under the pretense of equal facilities, a standard that was never met. This legacy continued into the 1960s with over 50 anti-desegregation bills passed, further setting back education equity. As we all know here in Buffalo, if not for Judge John Curtin holding the Buffalo School District accountable, those segregated practices would have stayed in place. But unfortunately, after his oversight of the district ended, we've seen a return to the status quo. Today, Buffalo Public Schools are still owed over $100 million in state funding. Black students face suspension rates more than double those of their white peers, often for vague reasons like defiance of authority, reinforcing violence and hate towards Black children. We urge the Commission to investigate how state actions have perpetuated educational inequity for Black students. The simple fact is that Black communities have been a dumping ground for our state's deadliest toxic pollutants. This is a direct result of slavery because of policies, laws, and practices that not only forbid Black people from living in healthier white neighborhoods, but also the states targeting Black communities for unwanted uses. The 1960s construction of Buffalo-Kensington Expressway is one example, where a thriving Black community was disrupted, resulting in some of the lowest life expectancy and highest asthma rates in the nation. Homes, businesses, and community ties were destroyed, preventing generational wealth from accumulating. We ask this commission to consider policies that restore health to these communities, promote fair pollution distribution, and create access to healthier environments. New York's criminal justice system disproportionately impacts Black communities, driving poverty and social instability. In 2023, Black individuals were 8.5 times more likely to be incarcerated than white individuals, with higher disparities upstate. The Buffalo Police Department, the state's second largest, has a culture of misconduct that targets Black residents. New York's economy was partly built on the forced labor of enslaved people, and discriminatory practices in housing and finance have compounded this legacy. We call on the Commission to examine the financial and social costs of these disparities and advocate for reforms that reduce bias policing and promote equity in the justice system. In closing, I'm born and raised in Buffalo. Many people here know my family, know my father. So my hope is that the work that for generations have been going on, this commission has the opportunity to do, so it can impact not only my life, my family's life, but my community's life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we'll have Dr. Jackie Cody. If you haven't signed up, there is another form here that's floating around. After Dr. Cody will be Cynthia, then George, then Michelle, and then Sandra and King. So prepare yourselves.
Good evening, members of New York State Community Commission on Reparations Repair, colleagues, and fellow New Yorkers. My name is Dr. Jackie Cody. I'm the Chief Executive Director of Cody Cares for Teens, the Education Crises Advocate, Chair of the Education Committee, and Vice President of the Brooklyn chapter of the National Action Network. Win with Black Women, New York State Organizing Lead, and I am here today also representing New Yorkers for Reparations, which is a coalition dedicated to making reparations a reality for Black New Yorkers. This mission is personal to me. I'm here for my ancestors, my loved ones, and my descendants. I don't want any other generation condemned to these inequalities. It is no mistake to hold the New York State Community Commission on Reparations Remedy first public meeting here in Buffalo, New York. About 5 miles from here, Elam Christian Church, many people who escaped slavery became an active part of the Michigan Baptist Church in Buffalo, New York. One of his church members, Mary Burnett Talbot, who played a prominent role in the early and mid 20th century struggle for African American civil rights movement, helped found the Niagara Movement, which was the precursor to the National Association of Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. For us, reparations are about the future. Inadequate education or lack thereof and the country's failure to atone exacerbates disparities in wealth, our legal and economic systems, anti-Black narratives, and other transgressions. At the United Nations meeting against racism in Durban, South Africa in August, September of 2001, the delegates voted overwhelmingly that slavery is a crime against humanity and amends are due to the descendants of the enslaved in the United States of America in many forms. 23 years later, the United States has still yet to atone for its own genocide. Crimes against humanity, kidnapping, human trafficking, rape, the enslavement and chattel slavery of Black people, lynchings, the 2022 Buffalo Massacre, recent text messages, threats to Black Americans, and scare tactics made towards our own New York State Attorney General are traumas that need serious repairing. New York State leads the country in so many ways. New York can undoubtedly set the example in making America splendidly superlative. Mass movement, making America splendidly superlative, mass movement of reparations. Reparations are about righting the wrongs of injustice from its foundation. Reparations are the only way to make equality real. Real for Black Americans, real for Black New Yorkers, and necessary for making true freedom a tangible reality. It's urgent and necessary for this commission to give us clear roadmap to delivering financial compensation, public apologies, truth commissions, policy reforms, educational initiatives, and structural investments to repair the harm caused by centuries of systemic discrimination. Our goal is to address historical injustices, eliminate enduring inequities, and create a truly just, free, and equal society for everyone. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Cody. I want to make room for Alexander Wright.
Sorry, I was in the bathroom.
It's okay, we allow for bathroom breaks.
So, first, there's nothing that this country or this state could do to ever repay African Americans for what was done to us during the time of enslavement. That's first and foremost. There's no figure you can put on it. I'm a law school graduate here at University of Buffalo Law, and one of the base courses you take is tort law. And tort law is what you see like hurt in the car or you have an injury and you're trying to figure out how much something is worth. You consider the damages. What are the damages? What were the damages to us, right? What price tag do you put on rape? What price tag do you put on ripping families away from one another? What price tag do you put on subjugating a people? There's, and not only subjugating a people, but then putting laws in place to allow that subjugation to keep happening, right? To create systems that allow racism to perpetuate itself. And then to further add insult to injury, make it those people's fault. Right? You want reparations because you're lazy. You want reparations because you want a handout. I think New York State and other states, but New York in particular, we always talk about union strong. We talk about fair wages. We can't talk about unions and fair wages and not be behind reparations. Because people working, struggling, fighting, working unfair hours. This wasn't no 9 to 5. This wasn't no hour lunch break. There wasn't any health care. So all that work that was done, there's a price on that. You can't put a price on the brutalization. You can't put a price on the trauma, but you can put a price on that labor, right? And that labor needs to be priced, what do we say? $100,000 in 1920 is a couple million today. So how much is it now for all the work that we've done? So I think what I want all the people to understand is whatever happens, even if it comes out to $1 trillion, it still scratched the surface on what black folks are owed in this country. Two, at no point should we ever allow anyone to make us feel like reparations are a handout. Right? And I want to say that especially for us black folks who have made it, who are educated, who have pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps and bought into all that other white jargon that helps us self-hate. That we understand what we're owed and that we go after that. So I'm hoping that, one, this panel is going to have some teeth. And I'm hoping that with all of us here, that you guys have the ammunition to go back and say, hey, this is real, this is a need, this is necessary, and this is what people want. I'm sorry. It's not what people want, it's what people deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Next, we would like to hear from Cynthia Mays.
My name is Evangelist Cynthia Mays, and for a couple of years now, the Lord has really been dealing with me regarding the conditions of our neighborhood. And I've been looking at how we're still like in this standstill of decay in our neighborhoods over and over and over, year after year after year. So yes, we deserve reparations, but in order to get the reparations we have to rally the people together. We have to get people encouraged enough to believe that we can get reparations. We deserve it and we can get it. But in order to do that, you got so many people in the neighborhood that are discouraged, downtrodden. You can feel the hopelessness in them because even though the apathy, even though they're working every day, they still got to come home to raggedy sidewalks, raggedy streets, slum lords, vacant properties that's sitting there being an eyesore in our neighborhood. And what I think what we need to do also is let the people know that they have a voice, that we don't have to sit and just take the things that's happening in our neighborhood. We have councilmen that if we got together collectively, and I believe it's going to begin with the church, we have to gather together collectively and say, listen, we don't want to live like this anymore. And if we did that and we held the city, let's just start with the city of Buffalo right quick, accountable for the damages to our neighborhood. And like, listen, I was told that if it's a sidewalk that's broken in your neighborhood, if it's a tree in front of it, I was told that it was the city's responsibility to fix it. Or if it's a broken sidewalk and a tree is not in front of it, then it's the landlord's responsibility to fix it. So I think if we can start with Buffalo, holding the common councils and everybody who is in place to do their job and fix the things that we need to be fixed, and people saw the repairing of our neighborhood, then people they would go together. They would get their hope back again. They would be determined, and they would believe that we'd be able to have reparations. See, the people are hopeless. A lot of people don't have hope because they say every time we try to do something, we get attacked. So there's fear. But we can't be afraid. We have to be like David in front of Goliath. We got to say, we got the right to have these reparations, and we're going to have them. You listen, there's nothing that God can't do. If we put God first, we got to come at this thing spiritually. We got to pray, we got to fast, we got to seek the face of the Lord, and then the Lord will prepare their hearts to give us what is due. He did it for Egypt, and he'll do it for us. But we have to stick together. We have to be collective. We have to participate, and coming out to these meetings like this, and you know what else we have to do? 30 seconds. When you have meetings and things like this, it's time to start calling people, calling the neighborhood. Let people know about these meetings. Don't depend on computers and stuff. Start letting everybody know. If you got to pass out flyers, if you got a cold call, let people know what's going on so they can get involved. We will have our reparations if we want it.
Thank you, Evangelist Mays. We appreciate the advice for Queens, New York. So as we prepare for our December 16th meeting, we hope that those that are watching and those that are here today will call and advise individuals to come out to Queens, New York on December 16th and let their voice be heard. Next is George Baba Ng. I just want to make sure that I have the names. And then next, we want to make room for President Buford and then Michelle Holmes.
Put it down a little bit. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Praise God and thank our ancestors for bringing us together and being with us. My name is Baba Omowale. My government name is George Baba Ng. I am the descendant of an African woman who was torn from Sierra Leone and brought to America via South Carolina and placed on a plantation in North Carolina. The study was done based on a matrilineal swab and analysis that my great-grandmother, Rebecca Africa, was brought from Sierra Leone, and she was of the Mende people, M-E-N-D-E. My belief in reparations is about a demand, not a recommendation from the commission, but a demand, because white racism has been the scourge of the planet for centuries. America enslaved Africans. Africa was colonialized, where the resources were torn and continue to be torn out and supply all of the world except people of African descent and Africans on the continent. We have a responsibility as black people to come together to demand that we be seen and see each other. We have to defy the lies that we have been told from birth. Lies in the school from kindergarten to college. Lies in the church. lies in the mosque, lies in the temples, about white superiority and black inferiority. We have been told these lies not only in the schools, not only by the priests and the imams, but by our neighbors, by the TV, by the radio, by everything you hear in America, because white people knew that black excellence would rise. There were thousands of Nat Turners in America, thousands. But resistance had to be subdued by denying that it happened, denying that it was successful, denying that black people could successfully fight back and restore our humanity. Black humanity and excellence is in our veins. That is how we were born. That is how we survived. The people who made it from the South to Buffalo to go into Canada, they were guided by our ancestors. They were guided by God, the God of our ancestors. Donald Trump was recently elected. And that shows that the majority of white people in America don't understand that they too have been lied to. So when we repair the lie, when we reject the idea of white supremacy and black inferiority, we also uplift the idea that white people suffer from oppression as well. They suffer from the ignorance of the lie. And as when we reject the lie, we also help bring them back to the table of the human family, because they have been removed from the human family by their ignorance. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. We want to make room for President Thomas Buford of the Buffalo Urban League.
Appreciate it. Good evening.
Good evening.
And thank you for having me here tonight. I'm so proud to be here with my colleague, Dr. Hawkins. As many of you know, we're part of the National Urban League, one of 92 affiliates across this country. And reparations, this is so important to what we do. On a daily basis, you know, we walk in here, people hear about the Urban League, and they go, some people still ask, well, what exactly do they do? And a lot of the work we do speaks directly to this reparations. But what we do is try to help our people move through this hurt, through this trauma, getting from Monday to Tuesday, sometimes from hour to hour. You know, move through this trauma from the transatlantic slave trade, the ancestral trauma that continued through the history of enslavement in this country and is built into the foundation of this country. And then, you know, our ancestors moved through that to this generational trauma where we were settled in the Jim Crow South and had to suffer all the inhumanities of that and the segregation and the racist policies. And then when we took advantage of the Great Migration and came to New York and came to the northern states, only to find that we would be further segregated. And you heard a lot about the redlining that has happened. And so we would find policies that would separate us, that would congregate us into small areas and populations and discriminate against us and let us not flourish economically. And the sad thing is this work that we're doing, just trying to help people move through all of this trauma on a daily basis, even, you know, beyond the ancestral trauma, beyond the generational trauma, but even compounded incidents of trauma that we suffered on May 14th of 2022. And then the environmental trauma that continues to plague this communities and many communities like it across this country and across the world. So we work every day trying to help people with these programs. But these programs are still controlled by the institutions that actually set all of this discrimination in play, by the by the policies and practices that are still very much ingrained in our government and many other institutions. So, we're working to fight against that. When you hear about the Urban League, it's not just services and outreach and things of that nature. Our national office is in New York City, but we also know that it's important to have policy change. So we also have our legislative policy office in D.C., our Washington Bureau office, because we know we have to fight fight these injustices in the streets as well as in the suites of America. So this is tough work. It's hard work. We're here to do it. We still need to help our people get to it day by day, sometimes hour by hour. But this whole promise of reparations, as we said, this deserving of reparations should not only give us the repayment for the labor in today's dollars, but compound it, right? That if we had it then, and then if we had it then, and our other ancestors got a chance to use it in the way that others have, what would that bring us today? So we're looking forward to continue to fight and do this work. I'm glad to be joined, and we have a wonderful leader in Commissioner Hawkins, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, President Buford, President of the Buffalo Urban League. We're glad you're here with us today. I also want to acknowledge, I know she told me not to, but Shakira from the governor's office, if she could just stand and just wave her hand and just acknowledge that she is here today all the way from the governor's office. So thank you. Next, we will have Michelle Holmes, if you're still here.
How's everyone doing? I'm here to represent the U.S. Freedmen Project in New York City. One of the things we want to discuss is our ethnic identity and who exactly gets reparations. A lot of our people are confused in terms of who reparations is for. One, because our identity is pretty much all-inclusive to everyone that can immigrate to America from anywhere in the world that is Black. So one of the things I want to discuss is one of our legislative identifiers, which is American Freedmen, which is specific to Black Americans, Black American Negro freedmen from the United States of America specifically. We also want to include the fact that we also use 1865 as a cutoff point for who identifies as American freedmen also. So it won't be any type of, confusion as to who Black Americans are. And we also go by Black American because that is what most Black Americans want to be called today. Black American Negro freedmen who descends from U.S. chattel slavery in America. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us. Next, we will have Sandra Cooper.
I don't have any eloquent speech or anything like that. I'm glad you all are doing this because it's something that has really been on my heart and mind, that this country, at a minimum, owes the descendants of the enslaved reparations. And as was said previously, my question is, who falls under that umbrella? Because as we all know, once they say they're going to do something for us, everybody falls in line, and then we fall by the wayside. That is disheartening and disingenuous for those types of things to happen. I'm Buffalo bred and born. been here all my life. My mother used to say, there's nothing new under the sun. You can't legislate people's hearts, but you can make them pay for the things that they do. They're still doing the same thing. Redlining has not gone away. They just found a different way to do it. You have corporations like Verizon. I worked for Verizon. You have corporations like Verizon who will provide file service, which is supposed to be one of the top internet type services. They will not provide it in the city of Buffalo. If you live on the outskirts at the city line, you can get it. When I worked for Verizon, I told my manager, because they kept on saying, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. 1 year went by, 2, 3, and I finally asked her, I said, so when is it coming to the city? I said, when is it coming to my neighborhood? She said, oh, the company has changed course, they're not gonna do it. I said, you know that's redlining, don't you? Oh, Sandra, don't say that. Why not? Let's tell the truth. Let's tell the truth. New York State needs to legislate. What you offer to somebody else, you better offer to the rest of us. Because otherwise, we are disenfranchised. Why should we not have access? Our money is good as everybody else's. Why shouldn't we have access to the same services? If you're offering FiOS in Cheektowaga or Amherst, Buffalo needs to have access to that. So that's my piece.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Next, we'll hear from King, and then I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Caron.
So hold one moment. I apologize. And so when the chair offered a 5-minute break, I was just thinking about you, but we do have a stenographer here. I just want to check in. Are you good? Okay. I just want to be respectful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. King, Caron, and then Franchelle will be next.
Good evening, everyone. Go ahead. Thank you. I'm King Tremaine. I'm representing the Black American Tribe Task Force. I just want to piggyback off a couple things that some people here have already said. The Queen who came up and spoke about ethnic identity and what it means to be a Black American. It's more than just understanding the title of United States freedmen. It's understanding that we are a people who were stolen from a land, brought to this country, disenfranchised from everything that we knew. Then our greatest accomplishment was staying here and giving birth to the most populous culture on this planet with no profit from it. That's why we are in need of repair. So it is very important that we understand exactly who we are, what our identity is, so that we understand what we are entitled to and what we deserve moving forward. That being said, I want to urge, I want to implore, and I want to beg this commission to guarantee us that accountability here in New York. This isn't an attack personally against this commission, but we saw in California what happens to Reparation Task Force and what is done within this democratic process. That was done. What Malcolm X once said, they will pay one of our own to come kill one of us so that they can say that it was one of us. And that is exactly what took place in California, and we cannot let that happen here in New York. With that being said, there are issues of transparency thus far with the commission that we really need to have corrected moving forward. We do not know what is going on. There are no work groups listed on the website, but we know that work groups are currently working. They're hiring experts to give testimony, but who are these experts and what are they giving testimony for? We need to know this. There are individuals, grassroots organizations who this commission voted to personally exclude from being in work groups. The grassroots are extremely vital because they serve no masters but the people that they serve. They are not indebted to anyone and they are not servicing anyone. So their exclusion is paramount, and we need to know why they were excluded and how we can get them back on board. If Yvette Carnell and the ADOS organization are not being vetted or used as experts, that we are being disadvantaged. If Dr. William Darity is not being used in his scholarship and understanding on reparations are not being used, we are being disadvantaged. If Kenneth reads in his financial packages of what reparations could look like to create generational wealth so that our great-grandkids, and I'm only 44, no longer have to work and are given what we deserve, we are being disadvantaged. I asked this commission because you asked for public comment, and we are all here giving sentiment, but the visceral trauma effects of being black in America are very well known. They are no secret to anyone. What we do need to know is what the commission is doing, what the physical spending looks like, if lineage-based reparations is being upheld, because that is what the constitutional basis and the United Nations basis of reparations must look like. So in order for us to be productive, in order for us to be effective, then the public needs to be able to hold this commission accountable. That can only happen with transparency and us having a voice. I also ask you to consider that when you're having these live streams, to have a section for people who cannot make it. There's a 12-hour distance from Long Island to Buffalo. People who want to be a part of this process should be allowed to comment right online and participate in what is going on. This is the way that we move. This is the political maturity. This is what Martin Luther King meant when he said he was integrating his people into a burning house. This is how we empower ourselves to move forward, by holding everyone within our community accountable to ourselves as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we'll hear from Caron, but I just want to
Commissioner,
just make
Madam Chair.
one point of order, one just point of clarity to the public that is here, that the commission does not have any work groups that are official work groups of the commission. So I just want to be clear on that. The commission, the only working group of the commission are the 9 commissioners. So if you've heard anything else, that is not true. There are no other work groups that work on behalf of the New York State Community Commission on Reparation Remedies. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, and that's part of the record today.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
Yes.
Greetings, this is Commissioner Daniel Favors. I so appreciate that clarification that you provided. I also wanted to provide 2 additional points of clarification. Am I able to be heard by the audience?
You're heard, yes.
Okay. Greetings to all of you. I do hope that you are all well. I just wanted to provide 2 additional points of clarification, and I take a moment to do so because in an age of misinformation and disinformation, it is extraordinarily important that we have clarity and accuracy. And so I just want to speak to the fact that there are no experts being paid by the commission, and that in the previous hearing where that was held by this body, we discussed at length that there is not a policy of paying any experts to come to the commission. There was a clarification that if any expert had to travel, that they would be reimbursed. And heretofore, no expert has been commissioned with any plans to travel whatsoever. I also want to just say that every single person that our dear gentleman who just spoke mentioned is more than welcome to come to any of these hearings. There is absolutely no policy of excluding anyone's voice in this process. While we all may have different perspectives on a variety of issues with relation to reparations, we must operate in a space of truth and clarity. And so I offer that because I feel the passion of the dear community member who just testified, and I want to make sure that if he is speaking to an issue that many other people also think, I just want the record to reflect that there are no experts being paid and that no one is excluded from attending any of these hearings to provide testimony either in person or in written format. And every single one of the people that were named by our community member who just testified is more than welcome to come into this space and share their expertise and offer their testimony and guidance. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner Daniel Favors. And I also want to add that all of our meetings are public. And so that our next meeting in Queens, New York, we will begin with a business meeting. And at that business meeting, we will discuss the business of the commission, including any spending that we've done thus far. We will provide updates on staffing. We will provide, that's where we make decisions about the commission's work. And certainly we will talk more about experts that will be invited to provide testimony, but no one will be excluded in every person is invited to join a hearing. The commission is moving around. We're starting here in Buffalo, we'll be in Queens next, then we'll be in Albany, then we'll be in Rochester, and we'll be moving around across New York State to make room for the community members to come out and lend their voice to the process. If you cannot make a meeting, we welcome you to use the commission's website to provide testimony. You can provide as much testimony as possible. There is no limitation on how many times you can submit testimony. That testimony goes to all 9 commissioners' inboxes. There is also a number that you can call. It's on our website. I apologize that I don't know it by memory right now today, but I will make that a task for myself. But you can go on the website right now and you can see that there is a number that you can call in and provide testimony as well. So there is an opportunity for community members to be there. So if you cannot make this hearing in person, you can send an email or you can pick up the phone and call and provide testimony. But this is how we are trying our best to engage, but we cannot do this work without you. So as the sister said earlier, we do need members to make phone calls, to tell people about the website, to tell people that they can call in, and to tell people to submit testimony by email. But this is a community commission, and we want all voices heard. So again, Buffalo, thank you for being here. And next, we will begin with Corone.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Vice Chair.
my hand's been up for a minute, so if I can also just speak to the last speaker and share with him so that in the spirit of transparency, you set up at our last meeting a subgroup to review several different experts, subject matter experts, excuse me. We are still doing that work. The executive committee gave us a charge to have that work concluded prior to the December 16th meeting. A couple of the names that the community member just mentioned are under consideration. We have yet to conclude our work. The third name that he mentioned, if he could repeat it again for the record, we will add that person and we will be happy to also review that person. Why? Why am I saying this? And I want, in the spirit of transparency, to let the community know what the process is. We have about 40 different subject matter experts that have been submitted by each of the 9 commissioners. And we are going through their credentials, their expert area, and we are that subcommittee, which includes Commissioner Daniel Favors, myself, and Dr. Ron Daniels in his absence. But we have been doing this work since the last meeting, and we have been given a charge by the executive committee of this commission to conclude that work prior to the December 16th meeting. So that's in full transparency as it relates to the process. No one has yet to be excluded for any reason whatsoever, but we do have a criteria that we are going through, and hopefully prior to the December 16th meeting, we will, according to the process that we have internally here at the commission, be able to begin to call upon some of those experts to see what their availability is, interest is, and have them present for future meetings. I just wanted to make that clarification. We are going through it all as we have been directed by our chair, and everything that we're doing is totally transparent, and I think you needed to hear that from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have a total of 23 community members signed up to speak, so we want to get back to and respect that opportunity for our public to speak that showed up. So who's next?
Thank you, Commissioner Hogs. Corone Evan Crump is next. Okay, next we will have Franchelle Parker. I see we have Dr. Candace Lucas here from the Rochester Urban League. Just wanted to acknowledge her presence, and I know she wanted to provide words as well.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Franchelle Parker, Executive Director of Open Buffalo. We authored a report, Buffalo, New York, a health crisis, 100 years in the making. I won't read the entire report, but we will submit some of the environmental assessment maps that were compiled in the process of putting together this report, but I did just want to pull out a few facts from that report. In Buffalo, black neighborhoods are 12 times more likely to test positive for elevated lead levels. Black children in Buffalo under 17 years old are more than 4 times likely to be hospitalized for asthma. Infant mortality is nearly 2.5 times higher for black mothers in Buffalo. Residents from predominantly black neighborhoods in Buffalo must travel further to access green space and food justice. Through this practice of redlining officially ended in 1968, mortgage and housing discrimination remain entrenched in Buffalo. In fact, 85% of Buffalo's black families currently live on the east side in neighborhoods that were redlined in the 1930s, all things that we already know. But what we want to bring out is a recent New York State investigation found that less than 10% of current mortgages are underwritten for black borrowers in Buffalo. In 2015, Evans National Bank was fined nearly $900,000 for mortgage discrimination, following an investigation that found that the bank would issue less than 1% of mortgages to black borrowers. To this end, while the remnants of Buffalo's industrial past are embedded within the city's soil, the consequences of the city's segregated past are woven into everyday experiences of those living in Black Buffalo. Residents have spent decades contending with lead-contaminated housing stock. Over 50,000 lead service lines still exist in black neighborhoods here in Buffalo. Inadequate public transportation, a lack of accessible options for food shopping, existing inequalities that are creating additional challenges to the health and well-being of this community. We also talk about the lack of trees in our neighborhood. And what that means to the impending climate crisis that we're all facing here. That's going to hit regardless if you're on the east side, west side, North Buffalo, right? Rising temperatures caused by climate change have increased the intensity and frequency of weather events and the consequences of which are increasingly concentrated in cities such as Buffalo. Older housing stock, such as what's found on the east side, with poor insulation and aging infrastructure, lack of proper HVAC systems, are all increasing the likelihood of death. For example, 51% of those who died from the blizzard of 2020 were black or residents of color. Rising temperatures compounded with the lack of green space have caused cities like Buffalo to become heat islands. We believe that an intersecting strategy of ecological justice, which would mean investments in green sector workforce development, green space, and remediating the contaminants in our soil and in our environment would be a first equitable step for reparations for Black Buffalo. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Ms. Crump.
We are from Open Buffalo, and we will submit the entire report, 100 years of health crisis in the making. We'll submit that on the website.
Thank you. And I also want to say to anyone else that had their talk written, if you wouldn't mind sending it to the record via email, we'd appreciate that too. Next, we have Franchelle Parker. I'm sorry, Francesca, I mixed you up. So did Ms. Crump, I missed Ms. Crump? Okay, so thank you, Franchelle, I appreciate that. Again, I just want to acknowledge, I know she's going to not want to speak, but I just want to acknowledge that we have Dr. Candace Lucas from the Rochester Urban League here, who leads all of our RAISE work in Rochester, New York, and traveled. And so we look forward to our presentation in Rochester, New York, and hope Buffalo comes too. So thank you. So next we have Sherry Sherrill Covington, or Sherry Sherrill. Is Sherry still? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. How are you this evening?
Thank you for being here. Great.
You're welcome. I just want to own something real quick. Most of the critical seeming comments on this poster board here are mine. Those are mine. Community, how you doing? My name is Sherry Sherrill. I'm the founder of Covington Associates Consulting. I'm also the Special Projects Facilitator at the We Are Women Warriors organization. I am working as a volunteer and a community activist with over 40+ years experience with East Side Parkways Coalition as we occupy the opposite side of the Kensington Expressway project debate from our esteemed governor, the Honorable Kathy Hochul. What I want to say to our community is I bring both a micro and a macro view to this presentation. I am the eldest daughter of former Erie County legislator Betty Jean Grant. Betty Jean Grant is a direct descendant of a young man named Albert Gooden, Gooden. Google his name. Albert Gooden is one of the victims of the vestiges of slavery in this country. So I am also a victim of the vestiges of slavery. And my inheritance from Albert Gooden is the scourge of lynching. He was lynched in such a horrific fashion that it made the cover of the New York Times newspaper and Life magazine. And I say that because when I came here today, I came here with very high hopes. When I heard about this New York State Commission on Reparations Remedies, notice I left out the word community. But when I heard about this New York State Community Commission on Reparations Remedies, I was skeptical. I was skeptical because our governor convened it. But then when I read some of the names of the persons who are part of the commission, including yourself, Madam Chair, including yourself, Sir Mr. Hogues, including Dr. Ron Daniels, I was encouraged. And I was encouraged because what I know of these persons I've just named is that they are very serious about the work that this commission needs to do. And I would submit to you, Madam Chair, as a recommendation that just like the Million Man March movement, which could have been called a commission that was in charge of that movement, they had local organizing committees. I think it would do my community a profound service if there were local committees that each of the commission members worked with, so that stories such as my family's story about how slavery has impacted us can reach the commission, because everyone doesn't have internet. Everyone won't get on social media. Everyone won't even pick up the phone and be able to articulate how slavery has hurt and injured, impaired, harmed irreparably almost our families. So yes, I'm very, very passionate about it. And I'm passionate because one of the things that's currently going on in the reparations debate is consideration of there not being monetary damages paid to descendants of slaves. And I want to say, with a show of hands, how many people from my city of Buffalo community, particularly the East Side, think there ought not to be money damages awarded for reparations? Nobody better not raise your hand. I'm sorry. I'm not a violent person, but I want to say to our governor, let there be teeth to this New York State Community Commission on Reparations Remedies. And the word remedy is extremely important. Money, honey, has got to be part of the remedy solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sherrill. Next, we have Betty Jean Grant. Is Betty Jean Grant still here? Okay, take your time. This is historic, and that is why we have videographers here tonight, because this is a historic moment. So thank you for all that are taking photos and documenting this occasion. Thank you, Betty Jean. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and I don't want to go after her, but I guess I have to. I want to thank Governor Kathy Hochul for impaneling this Commission on Reparations. I want to thank her for putting my fellow legislator, I call him my political son, Mr. Tim Hogue. We served in the Erie County legislature together, and I taught him everything he knew about politics. I was just kidding. But I'm here for a reason. Like she said, my uncle was lynched. And I thought about reparations, and I looked it up. This country has paid reparations already.
Yes.
This country paid reparation in 1866. It paid when the Civil War was over, and the enslaved African who were free met with the general of the Union Army. I forgot his name. It wasn't Grant or Sherman. It was Sherman? Sherman. And he said, give me a group of men. Let us tell us what you want. How can we as a country help the people who were freed? They said, you know what? We don't want a handout. We want a hand up. Give us 40 acres and a mule. That came from us. It didn't come from the government saying, we'll give you. And you know what? They did start that process of giving everybody 40 acres and a mule. They started in South Carolina and through a swath of land that led all the way to Florida. And they had 400 families get their 40 acres and a mule. And what stopped it was a bullet. When Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and they repealed the executive order for reparation with the 40 acres and a mule. So we have had reparation from the federal government. Also, I know California had a commission to study reparations. I know in Evanston, Illinois, they not only study reparation, they have a program where they give $25,000 to a family who's qualified to get a house or pay on a house. So we're doing reparations already in this country. And I'm glad that this is just more than a feel-good commission, because I know Mr. Hogue is not going to be anything that's not going to be written in stone. And so I'll say to the commission, thank you for doing this. And I said to the governor, thank you for doing this. And don't be embarrassed by asking for reparations, because I have people say, well, I don't want any money. No, you might not want the money, but your community needs community center. Your city and your family probably need good schools. They need to have jobs. They need to have training programs. Reparation doesn't have to be money. I know Sherry said money, but it can be many, many ways of helping to improve our community. And it's a start, and I just am so proud to see my political son here lead his charge of reparations, because it's duty. This conversation is way overdue. And I want to say briefly about East Side Parkway Coalition. We're in a coalition, and we're talking about removing the highway, the 33 highway. Every city in this country are removing highways. They're not putting tunnels in. They're taking the highways out. So we can join the Robert Moses Parkway in Niagara Falls. We can join Rochester and the I-80, the loop, and taking out the loop. We can join Syracuse, the I-81, California, Mississippi, Georgia, Tennessee. Everybody's taking out expressway. And we're talking about putting a tunnel in. Let's take that $1 billion. Take the expressway out, fill it full of trees. I know Franchelle Parker said we need trees. Have trees going from Cherry Street all the way down to Parkside, like it used to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We honor your work. Thank you so much. Next is Michael A. Sanders, and he left.
Good evening. We're not a household name, however, or represented by any committee, just a part of the community. And just wanting to know, when these reparations do happen, how will they be dispersed? My wife and I, we are in the community, we are homeowners, and it's a challenge. So we want to know what's going to become of the reparations. We have families that we represent, children, and we would like to know where these where would they come from and how would they be dispersed?
And then I am Tony Sanders. I am an Italian black woman, and I'm offended by the fact that I have to make a decision about who I want to be identified as in order to get what is rightfully mine. I was born in 1967 when it was against the law for me to even be alive, when the Lovings had to egress to Virginia to get away from being incarcerated and murdered. My father, he comes from the southern tip of Italy, where he was told when he got here he couldn't speak his language because we were now here in America. And I am part of the Lotempios that run the government, that run the judge, the courts, the law enforcement. But my father, who was an airman, was able to deny me. And my mother was not able to get any kind of services, child support, or anything. And the judge let him go out of there saying, Mr. Lotempio Jr., we know that you were with this woman, but because the law supports the biracial illegal for me to be alive, I represent everybody that is born to a biracial couple. It's offensive, right? And then, like someone just said, I shouldn't feel ashamed to be who I am. No one has the power to make me feel anything without my consent. But if you take the history and you bring it to today in the 21st century, well, starting with the county, they have been raping and robbing and pillaging us from the 1900s. It has been an ongoing, oppressive, I'm traumatized from the caste systems, from the racism, from the collection systems, from the credit systems, from fascism, from capitalism. I've worked 3 jobs for 27 years. And then I have to sit back and watch people who don't have green cards, who don't have visas, who do not speak the language, who are not even in a position to be entitled to what I have worked for 27 years. And that's just what I put on record. I've been working since I was 14 years old. I'm 57. And I can't get a home equity line of credit. I can't get a credit card. I can't get reasonable insurance. I'm being marginalized and criminalized and disenfranchised on a regular basis, right to my face. My husband, he put in for a job. They went back 35 years ago and told him he can't have the job because he has a criminal record. My daughter applied to a job 3 times as a black person. I said, why don't you switch it up and put down that you're white? They called her for that job.
Thank you, Sandra's family. I do want to just answer your question a little bit about the process of the win. The charge for the commission is to we have a year to look at, we have a charge of understanding and defining what reparations will be, who should get reparations, and take comments and feedback from the community and our research. And so we're going through that process right now. We'll be looking to engage with researchers to help us understand the history of enslavement and the harms in New York State, and also we'll be looking at what are some policy recommendations and looking around to see across the nation what has been successful. And we'll take that as a commission, we'll come together and form a report, and that report will be a collaboration or a compilation of all of the work that has been done. And we will provide a report to the governor and the legislative body, and they will take that, and it will be recommendations, and we'll go from there. And so I want to make room if there are any commissioners that want to add to that, but that is the process. And we know, I do want to say that we know that this work will take us longer than a year. And so we believe that we will need to ask for an extension of time and we want the community to support us on that. This commission started out very slow, meaning that we had to get staff, we had to understand what our role is, and we're still in that process. We've just made a decision to hire a staff person. And so we hope that that process will be complete in the next 30 days so that we can announce the staff, but we're continuing to ramp up on staff. So it is taking some time to do that. But we want to thank you all for the asking of the questions. We'll continue to answer, but we will need your support when asking for that extension because we will certainly need the extension of time. As we prepare for Jeannie Vinyl, I want to make room if there are any commissioners that want to add to that.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. This is Commissioner Linda Tarrant-Reed. First of all, I want to commend the Buffalo community for coming out tonight and really getting to know what the Reparations Commission is about. We appreciate all of your comments, and to that end, I wanted to provide the website. That is a wonderful hub where information about meetings and presentations, the videos from previous meetings, the minutes from all of our meetings. So this is very important for the community to understand the work that we've done so far and the work that's ahead of us. So the website is very simple. It's ny.gov/reparations with an S. The email address is reparations.reparations.ny.gov. And there's also a telephone number where you can leave a message, 518-473-3997. Once again, 518-473-3997. So we are available to receive any form of testimony, any query, any questions you may have of the commission and the commissioners. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tarrant-Reed. We want to hear from Vice Chair Dr. Deborah Jenkins.
Oh, no, I don't have anything
Oh,
to
you're
say.
set. Okay, I heard you. I saw you.
That was me, Madam Chair, sorry.
Okay, sorry. Commissioner Daniel Favors.
I thank you for the question and the time, and I'll be brief. I just wanted to make one slight clarification in that with regards to the question of who, this body is charged with examining all of the many-fold issues that are contained in the legislation for enslaved Africans, their descendants, and people of African descent generally at both the state and federal levels of government during the period between the end of the Civil War and currently, including economic, political, educational, social discrimination. That language is directly from the text. And so this body is required to examine not just reparations for one of these particular groups, but we are required to produce a report that speaks to the feasibility of reparations for each of the groups listed in the legislation. And that legislation was drawn up by our legislators who then voted on it. So I just wanted to speak specifically to that point about who, while there are a variety of perspectives as to who would be entitled to what, I just want to be clear about what the legislation says this particular body is charged with so that we know the limitations that we're working within. And if there are those who desire a more specific form of reparative engagement, then they would want to consult their elected officials and consider pursuing a legislative process that would create a body that could do that. So we are bound by that legislative language. And people can also find the language on the website as well, just so that you have exactly the definition of what we are charged to do and how we are charged to do it.
Thank you, Commissioner Daniel Favors. We'll next go to our next speaker. Welcome.
Madam Chair, I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you.
I just wanted to say something and thank Commissioner Daniel Favors for that clarification and to reassure the community that while that is exactly the language of the legislation, the actual law, we will engage in making sure that descendants of those who were enslaved in New York State in this country are well represented. So it will not just be a catch-all. We will do the work, and that is the work that we are engaged in currently. We have yet to make any decisions, but be assured that descendants of formerly enslaved people in this country, in this state, will be justly recognized.
Thank you, Commissioner Jenkins. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Jean Vinal. I'm a county legislator, and I've been a lawyer for 35 years doing civil litigation, including some civil rights work to trial and environmental justice work to trial. And there's a expression that if you ask a carpenter to solve a problem, the answer will involve a hammer. Well, I'm a lawyer, I'm looking at it kind of that way. And I was wanting to address the commission to ask to make it so that it goes smoother for legislators to agree to it and to implement this and to have lawyers do it, that I was wondering if you would consider a private cause of action for people to bring direct claims from now with DNA and other things with so much more documentation to bring direct claims against enslavers and their families. Because in law, there's an issue of the statute of limitations, but that's been waived on asbestos cases, on sexual abuse cases. And there's issues with regard to, on a civil case, that in a criminal case, it ends if the defendant dies, the criminal case ends, but a civil case goes on after death. So I'm saying that there's an idea in law that you never get title to property if you obtained it illegally. So if you obtain illegal wages from something, the profits of that, the title never came to the people that took it. So that idea of thinking about that terms, about statute of limitations, about opening up the courts for private causes of action, I think is really important as one aspect, as private cause of action and as a group. And then if there's no way to make a private cause of action, then to set up a commission, the same as we do with workers' comp, the same as we do with employment, the same as we do with so many other things with private insurance, that if there's no way to collect from the person who's responsible, we have it in so many areas of law for that they can collect then from a private fund, a government fund that is for people who can't collect against the individual family that was responsible or the descendants of that person who have profited off of it, that they can there. And I think that we look at the Marshall Plan after World War II, that it helped the world and helped United States by helping the world. The same thing here, that kind of rebirth that will be done by helping the Black community by getting their just desserts and finally getting recompense for something that, crimes against humanity and crimes against individuals and these things, that I think that would make it easier if we included all those. And as far as hiring experts, I think it would be good, if you don't mind me saying, to hire an expert such as the man who spoke here from the New York Civil Liberties Union, Mr. Wright, who spoke here, to help develop actual recommendations in the form of a statute. When you see lobbyists, they give the legislature, these big expensive lobbyists gives these big legislators the actual statute, the words to vote up or down. And I think that rather than just the ideas, to give those actual statutes, I think it'd be really well worth the expense to hire some people to do that. So that's my testimony.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I'm having a hard time reading the script. It looks like similar Farrow or Farlow. Are they still here? Next, I will have, this is the first page. We're at the end of the first page. Next is Willie. Next is India Walton. Are you Willie? Yes, Willie. It just says Willie. It doesn't have your last name, Willie.
How you doing? First, I want to say it's a pleasure. It was so much to glean from all these people, and today it's hard for me to, and I'm not a public speaker, but I do speak on certain occasions. For instance, I'm a little bit older, so I've been to quite a few hearings concerning reparations in 1968, 1970, the Black Panther March on Washington, I was there, we talked about it. The Million Man March, I was there, we talked about it. I can go on and on and on. Through my high school years, we talked about reparations. And what I found out through all of this, the people a lot of times that we vote for, we put there to speak on these matters, they go on and do other things and fill their pockets up, number one. Sister who said that she didn't know who he was, I definitely know who I am. I am a black human being, human, this right here. You see, human, you know who I am as an African. You see, everyone on the face of the earth come from Africa. I'm sorry to say, whether you be white, black, green, or purple, you come from Africa. So those crazy cousins of ours, you better get it together because, see, we coming for you. You see, and we coming for you up here. What I have to say is y'all talk about, like you talk about education, you talk about redlining and things such as that. What we don't talk about is suing some of them banks that then redliners. We don't talk about that. For instance, we think about the indigenous people. In 1616, the indigenous people that lived here, I think it was 147 or 48 million indigenous people. A lot of them was black. A lot of them was black. 4 generations later, there's less than 500,000 of them in America. There you go. That's something we don't think about when we talk about right there. And most of those people were black. Now, I can tell you about the slave trade to come over here too, because, it was millions and millions of us that died into that. You see, when we came here. But I sit here and I think about all the things that we talked about tonight. And for the persons who say they don't want their reparations, I'll take theirs. Not a problem. I'll take theirs because I think I deserve it from all the things that my family went through here. But we have to talk about seriously, you see what I'm saying, getting paid, getting what we deserve, and suing some of the banks for the redlining, the Jim Crow, and all that they have done to us over the years. And we don't never think about that. You see, we talk about, for instance, Jim Crow, we talked about it in the 1960s. A lot of us talk about each other when we talk about, well, why can't we come together and why we don't own this and that? Well, you got immigrants that then came here that then gave our reparations too. That's right. You see, and then you talked about, wait a minute, then somebody talked about that, Betty, when you talked about reparations, do you know they gave the slave owners reparations? Sure did. You see what I'm saying? Thank you. They gave them, for us, they gave them. After they gave them reparations. So we have a lot of things to talk about. We talk about what we need in New York State. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I don't care. I don't think much about legislators. I don't think about most of the people we vote for. I don't even think about some of the people that we put in some of these offices that's supposed to be fighting for us, because what I found out they do, they get arrogant. They think they're better than the people they work for. You see what I'm saying? And we get nothing but excuses. Because just think about this, and I'm going to leave y'all. Just think about this. Every major city in America, inner city in America, has the same problem. That's not mathematically possible. We don't think about it. That's not mathematically possible. Every major school, inner city school in America, have the same problem. 16 to 20% of the kids can't read. But when they took us off them boats here, what did they say? Don't do for them. Don't teach them how to read. Don't teach them to know where they come from. You see what I'm saying? And break up their language. Don't let them be able to talk to each other. So they got a lot of things that they got to atone for, white America. And then I'll give you the biggest thing when for instance, in 1681, that's when white supremacy showed up on this continent. And they figured that they can get paid from us. So all of the blacks they didn't kill, they turned them into Indians. Then they went to Africa and brought the rest here. So when you talk about people knowing their history, some of us do know their history. And we need to get paid for the things that's done to us. So that's all I got to say. But some of us do know our history.
Thank you, Mr. Willie. We thank you for being here. Next is India Walton, and then Kim Flowers is next.
Good evening. My name is India Walton. I'm here as a private citizen. So I want to start by sort of paraphrasing something from one of your colleagues, Dr. Derek Hamilton. I just did a paper actually on closing the racial wealth gap, and I read his speech from 2017 called The Moral Burden of the Economist. And he basically says that much of modern policy has been focused on fixing the black family or the mentality of black people rather than the systems that created the conditions and perpetuate the inequities in education, housing, the justice system, healthcare, et cetera. So as far as implementation goes, I would recommend that we lean into small D democracy. People know what we need where we live. We need to stop appointing people from outside of our communities to make decisions and decide how we spend money on behalf of the people. We need resources. There are frameworks to enable this, like neighborhood assemblies and participatory budgeting. We need our own institutions and infrastructure. The other thing is unconditional direct cash payments have been proven to be effective ways to close the racial wealth gap when given to individuals and families. We've seen this demonstrated in Stockton, California. I think Ms. Grant mentioned Evanston, Illinois, where they are trialing a reparations program there that is, it's effective. And not only is it closing the racial wealth gap, but we've seen that when we give unconditional cash payments to parenting people, literacy rates go up in children. There are less cases of child protective services being involved. Health outcomes are better. Families are healthier, and et cetera. And with my last minute or so, I just want to say we've heard a lot about environmental justice. Oh, great, I'm doing good then. Reparations is not only monetary, right? And I think that in the moment right now, there's an urgency right here in Buffalo with the Kensington Expressway project. And that right now I'm speaking to a lot of the local community leaders and influencers in this room. East Side Parkways Coalition has been working really, really hard to sound the alarm. And I think that secondary to restoring Humboldt Parkway to its previous glory, the least we can do is ask for a full environmental impact statement. I think that that is something that is owed to our community to at least, I mean, it's really only asking for the Department of Transportation to follow the rule of law in keeping with the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. It's the state's own law, so that's all that we're asking for. And I think that if anybody in this room has any influence or leadership of these organizations, and you have a voice and the capacity to help us out, sign on to a letter, show up to court next week and lend your support behind it, I think that like now is a moment of urgency where we can really change the trajectory and not be standing here 50 years from now saying we should have done more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walton. Next is Kim Flowers. Kim Flowers, are you still here? All right, we're moving on to the second one, so thank you everyone for your patience. Kamam Fields, Ari Fields? Come on, okay, thank you. I'm sorry, it's hard to read the handwriting, so forgive me all. Okay, I want to acknowledge while Kamo is coming that Reverend Blue is here. Didn't see Reverend Blue in the crowd, but want to acknowledge that Reverend Blue is here. Thank you for being here, and certainly want to make room for Reverend Blue.
The name is pronounced Kamal. That's all
Kamau.
good.
Thank you.
Blessed love family. How good and how pleasant it is for brethren and sisters to gather together. It's good to see this reparations forum. There were hundreds of years of damages, hundreds of years. It should take hundreds of years to repair it. This is not just for this generation. It's not just for us here now. We have to think of the children who are children now, those children who are yet to come for another 100 years to properly repair it. You can't just, it's not just a paycheck in my pocket, and then I forget about those who come after me. Reparations is about repair, and repair is more than just finance. It's all about the damages that were done. The First Nations people here, the Six Nations Confederacy, talk about thinking in terms of 7 generations ahead. Before you do something, think of its impact 7 generations down the road. For me, 7 generations is hard to comprehend, so I look at it this way. If I see myself right in the middle, if I think of my parents, my grandparents, and my great-grandparents, that's 3 generations. My children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren, That's 3 more generations. There's been at least 20 generations of damages done. So we can't just think about ourselves and what we want to get out of this reparations commission. We have to think about how that will impact at least 7 generations down, but 200 years of damages or hundreds of years of damages take hundreds of years to repair. So don't just think about how we're going to do it. Think about those who are yet to come. Think about those who have suffered, our ancestors who have suffered for generations. And we can't, like I say over and over again, forget those who are yet to come. And a couple of things. Truth is real, and that is being lost in this time because lies are very predominant and lies are very common, and anybody can tell a lie. Richard Pryor, it was Richard Pryor? Flip Wilson had a thing. He said, a lie is as good as the truth as long as you get over it. A lie is never as good as the truth. A lie, somebody else said, a half-truth is a whole lie. That's right. You know, and we need to correct our language. We talk about the United States of America as if it's the only place in the Americas. We say America and think USA. America goes from the North Pole to the South Pole. And its impact, the enslavers' impact, has stretched across that whole range of land. So it's a big job, it's a good job, and we're being forced to look at the reality of half of this nation who think they have the right to run roughshod over the other half. And we have to get ready for a big job because a big job is on the horizon. And I hate to say it, but I believe the worst is yet to come. God bless us.
Thank you, Elder Kamal. Reverend Blue, we want to make room for you if you wanted to take the floor. We want to make room for you. And then next will be Kayla and Rashid Littlejohn and Jason. So if you're here, you can prepare yourselves.
Good evening. And to all of our community, it's a great opportunity to have this commission formed because we have so much devastation that has happened to us. When we look at Hollywood, we're all depicted as being villains. Our women are depicted as being prostitutes and less than. And it's time for us to get what's due. Like Willie said, if you don't want your reparations, I'll take it. But one of the most important facts is now the government needs to do what the government should have done. There have been reparations paid to a lot of our immigrants to where they can open up a store and get money to open that store up. And then once that their abatement or their money has been, they've used it all, they'll sell it to their cousin. And their cousin will get the credits to open up that store. Jefferson area, we used to have mom and pop stores. Now we sold our name and we're not in the store. Yes. We need to get back to what we need to get back to. Our community has been devastated and it's time for us to come back home, y'all. Yes. It's time for us to take over our communities again, and it's time for the mom and pop stores to be supported. Because they had not been supported, they have been sold out. I'm sorry, sold off. And we need, George Johnson's there. He had a store on Jefferson. I remember my uncle used to own the Acme, well, the mobile gas station on Jefferson and East Ferry. My other uncle owned the Amoco, and I had slave labor because they told me to work and they didn't pay me. But anyway, that's his family. But it instilled value. It instilled a work ethic. And that's what we need to bring back to our communities. That's what we need to instill in our children. We are getting a raw deal. Because when they look at us, anybody go to a car dealership and you walk in, and then the salespersons, they walk away.
We're not getting proper loan applications and certifications, and we're looked at in a bad light. We need to change that. The government needs to do what they're supposed to have done. We talked about the redlining. We talked about all the degradation in our communities. We talked about even our communities being destroyed long ago by highway. There's a lot of things that we need to correct. This is a step. This is a step. It's one step. But once we get that step, we got to make light, and we got to make the best that we can make with it. So to our community, let's get this reparations. Let's get the government to do what they're doing, and I'm glad our governor has taken that stand. This could have been done a long time ago. But she made a stand, putting this together. And for that, she's to be commended for that effort. But once we get it, and we're going to get it, the question is what we're going to do with it. If we just take it and run, then what good was it? But if we take it and reinvest in our communities, it will be worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Blue. Next, we'll hear from Kayla Lark, if you're still here.
I'm sorry. People know me. I just talk, but I'm from the Buffalo NAACP. I'm the president of the branch.
Kayla Lark. And next will be Rashid, then Jason, then Tamlee.
Thank you so much. Could you hold this really quickly? Thank you so much. Good evening, all. Today I am here to represent those pursuing a degree in higher education. I am a student in a master's program at Roswell Park Research Institute. A little background about myself. I'm a Black woman from the urban city of Philadelphia. I was raised in a single-parent household where my father raised me. I also was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 18 months old. Many of our finances went into buying my medications. At 18, I decided I wanted to go into STEM as a pre-medical major because I truly wanted to become a gynecologist. Many of my family members had reservations because in Philadelphia, little Black girls are not allowed to dream of being doctors because as history has shown them time and time again, that when Black people enter white-dominated spaces, they will never be welcomed, and their dreams are crushed immediately. I am not one that always listens to what my father's generation believes because the ideals seemed outdated and fueled by fear. But above all, I had hope that America was not the same place it was in the 60s and 70s during my father's generation. So against my father's direction, I attended the predominantly white institution, a private institution I must also add, of Damon University as a pre-med major with a dream and a determination that I was intelligent enough to become a doctor. Many were concerned about finances, but I received a full tuition scholarship because of my stellar grades in extracurriculars in high school. Thank you, thank you. While attending Damon University, I quickly learned that this place was nothing like Philadelphia. Many of these students made it abundantly clear that they had never seen a Black person before. I was criticized for the way I spoke by my peers to the point that they began silencing my voice, for the way I studied, for my silence after their poor treatment. I was even judged for the fact that I preferred taking public transportation because, being from the city, it reminded me of home, but labeled me as poor and an urban girl who couldn't afford a car. But as the old saying goes, kids can be cruel. So I did not let that make me feel too uncomfortable or get me down. I graduated this past May with a degree in biology. And a tiredness of pursuing an education. I decided instead of experiencing an additional 4 years of torment, I would obtain a master's degree for only 1 additional year. I could handle whatever they wanted to put me through 1 more year. When I began at Roswell Park, a very reputable and prestigious hospital in my field, I was ecstatic to be in a larger community with what I thought was going to be more diverse. I know we should laugh. I was so excited in the first weeks of my experience that I began wondering why more black people were not pursuing master's degrees. This lasted for all of 3 months, until I had to file my first discrimination claim to the Diversity and Inclusion Office at Roswell Park. Many of the points made in the claim were surrounding the actions being taken against me to try to push me out of this program.
30 seconds left, sorry.
Because it is a program being made for white women by white women, since that has been the population catered to in this field for generations. There's still systematic racism and inequalities afflicting our society today, and this is not why only reparations needs to be considered, but change needs to be considered.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Thank you.
I would like, can we submit testimonials here?
You can submit it online.
Oh,
Yep, or you can give it here today too. Thank you. Next is Rashid.
Peace and love, everyone. First and foremost, I want to say RIP, rest in peace to Gail Wells at Buffalo Freedom Gardens. Y'all know. Shout out to the elder. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Rashid Ludejohn, a multi-generational Negro American whose ancestors were enslaved in the United States. My roots go back to New York as well as South Carolina, which ports are known to be some of the largest areas where slaves came. I'm also the rightful heir of 40 acres and a mule due to my third great-grandfather, James Pinckney Sr. in South Carolina, who received the land, but it was rescinded from Special Field of 15 was rescinded when Abraham Lincoln was murdered. Man. I come here today as the vice president of the Anti-Negro Defamation League, a former Buffalo State College student, a member of the New Yorkers for Reparations Task Force as well. In the history of New York City, we look at the Dutch who arrived in 1624, and we look at where we are in 2024, which is 400 years later. But many people do not know that when the Dutch came with the African slaves, by 1643, there was an established land called Negro Frontier, or Land of the Blacks, down in Lower Manhattan that extended from Tribeca all the way up to Greenwich Village. By the time the British came in, they began to slowly remove those individuals from the lands, and by 1712, then we have the first slave market in New York, down Wall Street, which also is where the first enslaved bodies were put on the stock market. And we also built the wall on Wall Street. And we didn't really know this history until 1991 when 19,000 bones, full intact, were found that then became the African burial ground site. And that is one of the many settlements that we had before emancipation, right? When we think about New York, we think about New York City, we think about New York State, and we think about the capital, Albany, who are named after James Stewart, Duke of York and Albany. So our state, as well as our capital, are named by individuals who were connected to the slave trade. His brother was King Charles II, and they had the Royal African Company, and they monopolized an international trade that extended from the lower ends of New York all the way up to the areas where we are now, Buffalo, Niagara, Rochester, and it spreads out. It's heavy information, right? Early communities that I want to shout out are Sandy Grounds. I want to shout out Seneca Village. I also want to shout out the areas out here, Michigan and William Street on the east side, which many know is an early foundational settlement in the 1840s where black people who were escaping slavery through the Underground Railroad came through. So shout out to the family that's out here. Slave catchers also came through the area, but they were constables. If y'all know who that is, it's peace officers, which came the New York Police Department. So the individuals who were tasked with catching enslaved bodies who we're trying to run away are individuals who operate in our police force today. It's heavy. So with my last minute left, I have so much to say. I really just want to focus on the fact that most recently there was a journal that came out from the American medicine area that said in the last 20 years we lost 80 million life years. So that means from the concept of vote or die in 2004 to where we are right now in 2024, we've lost 80 million life years due to structural racism. So when I talk about the hardships we face, I talk about genocide, right? When I talk about killing individuals, destroying the bodies of those people as well as their minds, when I talk about limiting where we could go, when I talk about CPS removing the kids out of our household and the strategic position in the Planned Parenthoods in our neighborhoods, we could collectively consider the things we've experienced in this country as genocide. And we need to look at it as such and look up the Proxmire Act and the international version of exactly how we should be compensated. And that goes $1 million for each harm, each claim, each area that we've been impacted on. So let's continue to do the work. Let's continue to lift up the history, because the British considered the state of New York the crown jewel of the transatlantic slave trade. So New York has to atone for it, and let's set the tone for the rest of the country on the federal level as well. Peace and love.
Thank you. And as a reminder to those that did not submit testimony, you can do so online at newyork.gov/reparations. Next is Jason.
Okay.
Thank you. We have a stenographer in place. So Jason, and then next is Tammy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason. I am the Equity Director and Outreach Director of an organization in Western New York known as Dope Collective, Dismantling Oppressive Patterns for Empowerment. I'm going to try and make this as brief as possible. I have, some recommendations for potential solutions. A lot of them I feel like may not necessarily be policy or price point placed, because I know when we think about reparations, I'm not saying money's not important. Of course, the economics are highly important, but I guess how they kind of play out into policy or into actual action is in a way, I feel like we should look for a solution that's similar to the New Deal. Everyone knows about the New Deal was the plan that FDR put into place during the Great Depression to actually help families out financially, especially those who lost their homes to banks. And of course, we were left out of that New Deal. But he had no problem shipping us off to war and dying on the front lines against Nazis and still being called niggers when we get back here, so you know. But with that being said, we should have probably solutions that will protect black people from terrorism. Those of us who are from here know about the tragedy that happened here 2 years ago and how there's little to no protection for us, how that terrorist went into our community and tried to destroy us in our heartland. But it's like having an actual protection plan for those people of color, also legally as well, financially. A black economic, political, and population growth being the reason for terrorists and violence, and the possibility of reparation heightens those violence. How can we protect ourselves as we get what we deserve is something that is important. And when it comes to getting what we deserve, how do we create programs that not only protect us, but also enrich us? As we see that our incoming president is going to take down the Department of Education out of this weird fear, well, not this weird fear, it's just the reality. When we talk about issues that actually expose the reality of what America is, you are engaging in a psychic war against those who want to maintain the lie. And because the Department of Education is getting shut down because DEI has attacked people opposed to holding them accountable for their inequities, we need to find a way to allow these reparations that also repair our education system, but also education in a way where we'll get information about who we are as a people, how to deal with social systems as our own, and also how to combat other forms of existential crisis and physical crisis that pretty much affect us as black people in this country. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Tammy Lee.
All right. So I'm going to speak to the current administration and the one that's coming in. And anyone who wants this formal letter after, I'll forward it to you, you can forward. So, dear President Biden, in June 2021, you signed a bill establishing Juneteenth as a federal holiday. While symbolic measures are important, the U.S. should act further and move towards a comprehensive reparation establishing an H.R. 440 style commission. Also, dear President Trump, voters made it clear during the November election that addressing racial justice and equality was an urgent demand. Establishing a reparation commission is essential to doing so. At every level, reparation efforts are advancing across the country, including the private sector, colleges, universities, churches, institutions, city and state government. So it's imperative for the administration that's sitting and the administration that's coming in, they can both pass executive orders for the Federal Commission for Reparations. And I would like to demand, not ask, that you establish an executive order for the Federal Commission that would study the legacy of enslavement and develop proposals for reparations. This will be the same commission provided in the bill, H.R. 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposal for African Americans Act, which also has a record level of support with 215 Congress committed to vote yes in the event of a full vote on the House floor, but it still remains stalled. So as a reminder, we just all voted. Your vote should matter. You should use your vote. You have your Congress. You vote these people in. It's their job to represent you. So there's no problem for the sitting president or the one that's coming in to pass an executive order under the H.R. 40. So again, if anybody wants a formal letter or to send to your local representative, your state representative, your congressman, I'll gladly forward it to the commission here. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Raj Jomo Okono. We appreciate you. Are you still here? Oh, there he is. Raj, the microphone is yours.
For the timekeeper, can I just, you made a statement, I just wanted to ask a question, and a 10-second question is, you said that you have a year, but could you tell us, is the year from today, or has the clock already been ticking, so you only got a few months? So just a clarification.
Yes, thank you for that question. The clock did start ticking on July 30th when we officially commenced as a commission. And so we are expected to provide a report to the governor within that time frame, and we believe that we will need an extension on that time frame. Yes, governor and legislation.
So basically, it's only 7 months left to completion, so if the community is needed, I would ask that this community seems to be ready. We'll do our due diligence in Western New York, and everybody watching can do your due diligence. Follow the leaders. But
thank you for that.
What I would just like to say, I want to honor the shepherd of this house, and saying that it's just even opening, prayer for 2 seconds. Let God arise, let his enemies be scattered. Let us reveal the truth and not the lies. And may the God of our ancestors burn out all traitors and spies. So I come in peace, and I'm asking that God fight for us continually, which is what has preserved us this far, unashamedly. Unashamedly, amen. With that being said, I would just like to communicate as far as recommendations for remedies, because I really want to get straight to policy. The cultural continuity of our communities and our families were disrupted, and then they were reinforced by state laws, which is why we have a state commission. And they were also reinforced by the dominant culture. So it's not just the laws of the state, but it's by the culture of the people. All right? Our continued miseducation by law and misinformation by the dominant culture is still upholding the systems that were enacted from enslavement. Part of our repair must be funded re-education in traditional and BC culture. And for those who don't listen to my radio show, BC stands for before captivity, before colonialism, and before the Berlin Conference. Because these are reference points that disrupted our humanity, and the reference points that we have heard has been defined by others, and not who God created, but who Europeans tried to reimagine. Our public education by curriculum
is a mental infection or an injection that we receive for our formative, middle school, high school, and college level years, which is about 17 to 25 years of wrong history and wrong culture. Learning the history is one challenge, but replacing our culture is another. If by chance we get a chance to learn outside history, we're going to spend at least another 17 to 25 years unlearning we did at all of our illustrious institutions that have us walking sideways right now in the 21st century. So the question and repair that I recommend as far as policy is that we have to identify how much does it cost when you lose your culture. You can study the history of what happened, but understanding how to practice what worked are two different realities. It's like studying the history of religion and really following what the prophets or people told you. They're two different things. So people can give reports and talk about, we learned about this in Black history, but the culture of our families, our communities, our expanded communities, these things have been and are still disrupted today. A quick remedy that I just want to talk for this conversation is we have to have, I propose that we have regional all-age freedom schools that are funded by the state, and all those who have benefited, their companies, children, and anybody else affiliated with them, we should have a continual fund until we decide that we are completely repaired on that educational front. And it will go similar to the cultural education, possible trips and visiting places we were stolen from, as well as making sure that we have access to all institutions of building, from medicine to building trades to education. And I would suggest that as we talk about this, if we're really serious now, we should be talking to our elected officials who are going into office in January, because they're going to be the ones who are going to have to adjust the time, and they will have to reinforce whatever recommendations are made. Thank you.
Thank you. And as a reminder, please submit your testimony if you have it written to us on the website at ny.gov/reparations. Thank you. Next is Bob Belton, if you're still here. And then after Bob will be Charles, then Michael, then Amon, and Katrina, and that will be the end of the public hearing. The public hearing testimony portion, I should say.
Thank you. I was born and raised in Niagara Falls. First, I'd like to acknowledge that my city councilman is here, Brian Archie.
Thank you for being here, Councilman Archie.
Question, do you guys have some procedure for proving that your ancestors were enslaved? What do you need to do to document that?
We have not gone through that process yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
2, the Constitution, the amendments that got rid of slavery said, except for prisoners. Rockefeller came up with the Rockefeller drug laws, and Nixon applied it nationwide to his enemies, which were Black people and white college students. Before the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, Black people were approximately 10% of the population. General population, they were 10% of the prison population. Now we're 60, 70, 80% of the prison population. The government has created tens of thousands of former ex-slaves. That's all I want to say on that. Niagara Falls, let me talk specifically about Niagara Falls. They cleared out a Black community. They displaced a Black community, East Falls Street. There was a vibrant Black business district, Erie Avenue, or Erie Street. I'm not sure if it's street or avenue. You've probably been there if you've been to the casino, because that's what they built on the Black business district. and they used the public funds to do it. After that, 1960, they created a plan titled the East Falls, the new East Falls Theater District. That was a community of black folks that were displaced. My question is, what do you do now for people who have been cheated out of their property, cheated out of any gains from the real estate values that would have been incurred from all this valuable property? That's a question you can answer in your meetings. My concern is, from what I've seen in Niagara Falls, there's a thing in Western New York called the Friends and Family Plan. It seems that monies that are supposed to go to fight poverty get channeled to the Friends and Family Plan. There's a website that says the 10 worst urban renewal projects in America. You know what the #1 worst project in America is? Niagara Falls, New York. Tens of millions of dollars have been spent on poverty. Has anyone been to Niagara Falls to see $1 million, $10 million, $100 million spent on poverty? If this does come to pass, thank you, can the state have a neutral or a referee that the monies come through rather than go to these municipalities, because they have used nepotism and cronyism as a modified version of racism to line their pockets, keep us poor, and use that poverty to get the next grant, the next government program and they bring out programs that were solutions that they know have failed, that they know will fail. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge, we said that we would always announce when the public hearing section is going to close. Our section will end in 26 minutes, so if you have not signed up to speak, we will be closing the public comment section in 26 minutes. Next, we'll hear from Charles Humphrey.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all that showed up tonight, and especially all of you for still being here in support.
Thank you.
My name is Charles Humphrey. I am a proud, motivated, energized, young black Buffalonian. I work in developing a sustainable and more just food system, particularly locally, but also at large. I'm not just a born and bred Buffalonian, but I'm here as a member of the Buffalo Food Equity Network, co-founded by Nina Ferguson, Rebecca Williams, and others in partnership with the Food for the Spirit. The Buffalo Food Equity Network is a black woman-led network assembling underrepresented communities and advocates to build movements that improve all levels of the food landscape in Western New York. As a member of this network, I'm here mainly to voice the conclusions of a paper co-authored by our co-founder, Rebecca Williams, along with PhD candidate Jessica Gilbert. The paper is titled Pathways to Reparations, Land and Healing Through Food Justice, and its conclusions are as follows. In quote, reparations require repairing the brokenness resulted from centuries of oppression. However, such healing cannot be fully achieved without land justice. Land provides a source of wealth, a space for self-determination, and an opportunity to reconnect with ancestors and cultural traditions. As social movements for reparations strive toward transformative reparations, these two elements, land justice and healing from intergenerational trauma, remain central to their goals. We show that the same is true for food justice initiatives. This paper marks just the start of our explorations into reparations, and there remain several lines of inquiry that need to be addressed in further research. There are three as follows. First is conversations regarding reparations and land justice will always remain incomplete as long as they neglect to address indigenous land struggles, particularly in regard to decolonization. Are reparations and decolonization incommensurable, or are there ways that these movements can support each other? close quote, my voice is, this is a conversation where indigenous voices must be heard. Here in Buffalo, we must build community with the Seneca Nation of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy in order to even effectively engage in this discussion. Open quote. Second, there is a need to examine how social movements for reparations and food justice initiatives might be contextualized within the broader agrarian question. How are these social movements impacting and impacted by neoliberal globalization and the corresponding calls for land reform and political inclusion? How might social movements for reparations and food justice initiatives learn from past land reform failures? Finally, as in the case with the Tierra Negra and Soul Fire Farm case studies, many food justice initiatives and social movements for reparations rely on donations and philanthropy. However, the control of such financial flows too often rests in the hands of wealthy white folks. As reparations must be for and by black folks, does reliance on philanthropy really assist food justice initiatives and social movements for reparations in repairing what has been broken? Furthermore, overlaps between food justice initiatives and social movements for reparations might lead to competition for philanthropic funds. How might such competition impact cooperative reparation efforts between social movements and organizations? We hope that readers joining us in delving into these and other questions arising from these pages. End quote. Again, this paper is titled Pathways to Reparations, Land and Healing Through Food Justice, co-authored by Rebecca Williams and Jessica Gilbert. I just wanted to speak on a personal note. I'm proud to be a Buffalonian, proud to be a New Yorker, but I also recognize that I know my history and that I am only a New Yorker because after my grandmother's father was accused of flirting with a white woman in Tennessee, we had to come up here. Why was that? Because they were one of the few families that owned land in Tennessee and were employing other blacks in Tennessee. So Lord knows that couldn't come without consequences. I think that many of our other brothers here tonight have spoken on the threat of knowledge and information, and especially with the rising political scheme that we are living in, the threat to education that might teach us to not like ourselves or our history. No, we need to know who we are so we can respect, appreciate, and evolve.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Humphrey.
you.
Next, we'll have Michael Brown, Sr.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Commissioner, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. However, I'm very disappointed. I'm extremely disappointed that anybody would accept a job this big knowing that there was a one-year deadline to get something done, and then not have the advantage of a budget to hire staff people to apply for resource persons to be able to present the kind of information that you would need in order to, in some way, at least be made more aware of what all of these speakers have brought to your attention long before July. If there was no report from the Department of, well, let's say, for example, Corrections, or from the Office of Human Rights, or why not? And why would you come to Buffalo not having that information in hand, so that none of this would have even been anything more than an underlining of what you were already informed of? I have no respect and no regard for Ms. Hochul and her so-called effort to actually address the issues that are impacting on the African American community, because the one time that she did have such an opportunity, she took herself to precinct, what was it, precinct C? The C district or E district, and hid behind bars like she was a criminal under friggin' what do they call it, protective custody. Wouldn't even allow us to be able to be in the same room with her, merely to discuss how she didn't, or in this case, not necessarily her, but years of destruction of a community that was the absolute gem of the East Side from 1955 on. In Buffalo, New York, if you were an African living in America in 1950, you could not cross Best Street. You didn't get across Genesee. You were so downtown, you had better stay there. And it was only as a result of having had a necessity to hire Africans in Bethlehem Steel, in the motor plants, and in the war plants that those persons earned enough to be able to replace those Europeans who had, for most of that period of time of the city's history, had actually populated this area we call Cold Spring or the Greater East Side. A year is never going to be enough, and I don't want to go back to 1866, 1799, or 1827, all very prominent dates in the lives of how disinterested New York State was in reparation at all. And in fact, I want to defile the entire point of reparation. What we require is restitution, because restitution is the result of a crime. And you think, or many think, that by referring to this act as reparation, that it in some way eliminates that the crime has been committed. No, no. We have been criminalized, and we require decriminalization in order for us to be able to at least apply for and or attain restitution. Because under New York state law and federal law, it was against the law for any person to be able of African descent to bring an action as a result of having been harmed by the state and or an individual. We were deprived of that. And I would hope that you would take this message back to the legislature that they need to extend this time period as well as to provide more support for this effort.
Thank you. I just want to provide a point of clarity to Mr. Brown Sr. I just want to say that I am certainly honored to volunteer my time to do this work. I am not being paid. We are not being paid as a commission. We have certainly, nope, the floor won't be yours again, sir. I just want to say that we have certainly put forth much effort. Let me finish, please. Thank you very much. I want to say that certainly there's $5 million allocated to this effort, and we are going to make sure that we steward those funds wisely. But I want to just ensure that you understand that this is not something that we're being paid to do. This is a volunteer effort. And so this is something that is very important to me and my colleagues, this work, that we would volunteer. We all have full-time jobs, but we wanted to make sure that we understand the work that needs to be done, and we are committed to doing it, whether it takes us 12 months or more, but we're committed to do this work. So I'm honored, and I'm sorry you're offended, but I'm honored to lead this work for New York State.
I thank you, Sister Hawkins, for your comment.
Dr. Hawkins, thank you.
Dr. Hawkins, or Sister Dr. Hawkins, if I may, I was taught that all that I am, I owe, and I am forever in debt. So we don't get the privilege of volunteering anything. We are in repayment for those who actually provided us with that opportunity to have what we have, to be able to offer in volunteership or service or support, but all that I am, I owe, and I am forever in debt to you and to the ancestors and even to my progeny. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Eamon Canham. Eamon, thank you.
My name is Amin Ram, just a
Thank you,
community
Amin.
member. And first I wanted to read a couple of the excerpts from the actual bill. And the duties of this commission is to examine the institution of slavery which existed in New York State, examine the extent of which the federal government acted inside the restriction of enslaved Africans to go back to their homelands, examine how New York State engaged in the interstate transfer of enslaved Africans, examine the lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery, examine the current conditions of the living people of African descent, recommend appropriate ways to educate the public from the Commission's findings, recommend the appropriate remedies and reparations of the consideration, and to examine the feasibility of a creation of a bureau to assist in the distribution of these remedies. And then also, if you scroll down, it does talk about the fact that this thing, it has a termination clause inside that. And it says this commission shall be terminated 90 days after the date of which the commission submits its report, which they had already alluded to. So I would highly recommend everybody to read the actual bill and just get familiar with it so that y'all can help these people out to extend this past that 90 days. The recommendations that I would like to propose to this is to not conflate the conversations of reparations and remedies towards certain things, because I don't humbly believe that we as African Americans should use our reparation dollars, which were due to us for enslavement, to pay for the wrongings of America for all of the economic, social, environmental injustices that they did inside of our communities. You can't give me $100 and ask me to put that $100 towards something that you did in my neighborhood towards me. So one recommendation is do not conflate the conversation of reparations and remedies. The federal government needs to foot the bill for all of the things that they did inside of our neighborhoods, and reparations should be separate of that conversation. The second thing that I would say is there is said that there's two actual distinct problems inside of the African American community. It's access to education and it's access to economics. I was a part of a union, a local union inside this area, and one thing that that union did was it actually took a percentage of our earnings and then put it inside of a vehicle so then it could be like invested. And then those dividends actually paid for our union to be able to do crazy stuff. Like they gave me like $10,000 a year just to go do random stuff. And I took advantage of that because it was money that was owed to me being a part of that union. I would recommend that if we do talk about conversations of monies, we don't look at it as an individual stance. You know, just a quick calculation. If the federal government released $5 trillion to us, depending on what area you stay in, that would either afford you 13% of what it would cost to buy a house or 35% of what it would cost to buy a house. That's $5 trillion. But if the federal government took that money and based it off of an individual sense and put it inside of a vehicle that we can all benefit off of, a dividend off of $5 trillion can actually extend to one of the brothers talking about 7 generations from now. That could extend 7 generations off of a dividend if we collectively put that money into a specific vehicle that benefited said parties. So I would recommend all of us to kind of think about that in a generational stance instead of a individual stance. And then the last thing that I would leave off with, just a note to everybody, reparations is inside of our own minds, because the true reality is the money that we in Buffalo, like we got like 98,000 African Americans, right? The money that we spend on our birthday, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas technically is 4 times the amount of money that Brother Buford needs to build his new facility on the east side. He needs $25 million, and this year alone, on our birthday, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, we spent $118 million. So put that in perspective for all of us when we're talking about reparations for ourselves.
Thank you. Next is Katrina Martin. And as we prepare for sheet 3, next will be Jordan, Tamara, Derek, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, everyone. As spoken, my name is Katrina Martin. I am a member of the National Action Network. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm here representing myself today. I would like to thank Governor Kathy Hochul and the New York State Community Commission on Reparation Remedies, right? And so that's more of what I would like to talk about at this time. The first thing I would like to do is make a point to potentially need to rename the commission and call it something else other than the reparations for, Black or African enslaved people, because slavery that was imposed on African people is exclusive to my ancestors and their experience. So if we want to address issues of marginalization with other groups and other people, then that's fine. I think that we should do that, but I think that we need to call it something else. Because what we have a tendency to do in this country is to be ashamed and afraid to just say something that we're doing is black and for black people, and that's not the kind of people I am. I know most of the people in this room, and that's not the people that you are. I would also like to make a point that this state and our government know what to do to rectify and right this wrong. That's why I would like to speak about remedies. You clearly know the injustice, you know the oppression, you know the ramifications, and what the black community and the African community has suffered in relation to racism, in relation to slavery. So to keep continuing to do commissions and studies to talk about the same thing when the commission just really needs to be focused on the remedies. And I'm going to tell you how I know that you know how to focus on the remedy. When we have an issue in this country with Catholic Church survivors, we made a law to change it to cover them so at any time they can go back and see the ones that inflicted harm on them. We see it in faith-based organizations. We see it in an educational institution to protect people. We see it with mesothelioma and black lung disease that affected white men in coal mines in Virginia and throughout the Midwest more than we've seen it anywhere else, and we came with the provision for that. We know what to do. We've seen Love Canal in Niagara County. We've seen Hickory Woods in South Buffalo. We know what to do when there is an injustice. We see Ellis Island and white freedom, people coming from Europe to the Americas for their freedom, and they're called freedom seekers. Now we call them illegal aliens. After the Great Depression, FDR came out with the New Deal and imposed federally secured bank loans for white people. We then followed with the GI Bill to do the same to make our soldiers whole. We then moved in modern day time to marriage equality, and we made our citizens, and whoever they are, wherever they were going to be, whatever identity they wanted to have, we made them whole and say, we see you and you can love whoever it is that you want. We're recently shutting down the Tonawanda Coke plant that has had health impacts on people in that area. We did something about it. There will be cleaning up of brownfield, revitalization of that area, and resources. We've also done something in this country and in this state in relation to persons with disabilities. We also developed temporary housing that we called a housing project when white people didn't have anywhere to live. We turned around and made that permanent housing for black people. So the things that we need to do in relation to addressing reparations is collective manufacturing. We don't only need cooperative food courts. We need cooperative manufacturing. We need black medical campuses to counter those disparities within our community, because that's what we see. Right? We have we need black educational campuses.
Thank you, Ms.
We
Martin.
need free tuition.
Thank you,
We
Ms.
need a
Martin.
lot
You can
of
submit
things.
your testimony
So
via
I'll
the
submit it, and
website.
thank you for listening today, and sorry for going over the time.
Thank you, though. We appreciate it. We just want to make room for everyone else, and I'm sorry. Next, we have Jordan Jackson. If you're still here, Jordan.
Hello. So originally I had some questions, but a lot of them got answered throughout the night. I guess my most important question I would have to ask is, what will reparations look like for us as a community? And more importantly, how do we make sure that it remains within our community? So a lot of people mentioned cash payments. I would also like cash payments, but unfortunately, I'm kind of a math nerd. 1/3 of the recipients for people who hit the lottery or come into large portions of cash typically end up broke within the year. I would hate for us to actually receive these reparations or cash payments or any type of justice being done to us, and then we lose it through either cheap swindling or unfortunate causes. We are dealing with the United States government, and as if one thing we know from history, they don't like to really stick with their deals. They're corrupt. I forgot the proper saying, but you make a deal with the devil, he always kind of got something for you. So if we sign this and we shake a hand, how do we make sure that we don't end up, for lack of a better term, getting screwed in the end? I live not too far from here. I live on Wakefield. Growing up, all black community. Now, it's not as many black folks there. How do we make sure that, say, whatever we receive, it stays with us? Because if I put it towards a house and then some funny business happened and I don't have a house no more, or one of the brothers that was here earlier said that he was entitled to his 40 acres and a mule, some funny business happened, now he doesn't have the land anymore. What do we do to basically protect ourselves to ensure that it remains with us? That's kind of all I have for my time.
Thank you. And if you have recommendations that you think of overnight, please feel free to send them to the website, Mr. Jackson. Thank you. Yeah, anytime you can send them, and that the website is open and available to you. So if you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, go ahead and send your recommendations. Tamara Cross, you're next, and then Derek Hilson.
Good evening. Thank you, commissioners, first and foremost, for allowing us to have this space. We've been silenced for far too long, and we do what we can as a community to uplift ourselves and pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, even when we don't have bootstraps. But my name is Tamara Cross, born and raised in the east side of Buffalo, in an area that's predominantly black. And I just wanted to share my personal testimony on the harms of slavery and its impact on not only my educational experience, but also my pursuit of medicine, and also how, in turn, it has led to white supremacy and institutional racism, systematic racism that has also impacted my education experience, and also how these reparations could be used to influence the lives of those who are in pursuit of education, black people. So again, I was born and raised on the east side of Buffalo. My pursuit of medicine started when I was about a junior in high school. I went to a Buffalo public school, so I was fortunate to go to one of the higher performing institutions that allow for me to take different courses. But I learned about my grandmother's illness. She was severely sick from chronic diseases, kidney failure and congestive heart failure, things that could be prevented. And I eventually learned that she passed 4 months from her diagnosis. And I remember two things that I kind of asked her was, one, why hadn't you take action sooner? And also, like, what was it that you could have done differently? And two things she told me specifically was that she didn't see a lot of doctors who looked like her, and she had to go to a lot of different doctors for her different ailments. And, as a junior in high school, I wasn't really thinking about the impact of healthcare on black communities, but after her passing, I started having conversations just with my family, got involved with social action organizations, and started learning, we don't go to the doctor unless we absolutely have to. It's an emergency, and a lot of us don't even have primary care doctors. But one obvious thing that has been shed light on during the pandemic is that there is severe mistrust and distrust in the medical industry. So I decided to pursue medicine. I went to an institution here in Buffalo, and I was told that, also, like, while I was in high school, we know that our history is often not shed light on the prosperity of our history. We're just told that we were enslaved people, Columbus came, and then MLK, fast forward to MLK, fast forward to, Barack Obama. And there's just a lot of gaps that I needed to know in order to repair the health system for black people, specifically combating health inequities. So I wanted to pursue biomedical sciences and African American studies at my institution. They told me, well, African American studies won't really fit in your curriculum. And so being, I wouldn't say naive, but just trying to study the course, being a first generation college student, just trying to get it done, changed my major to public health, eventually pursued a combined bachelor's and master's in public health. And I was still active on my community, in my campus community, trying to figure out what we can do as Black students, faculty, and staff to ensure adequate support for students. Found out that there were a lot of things that could have been changed. For instance, one of the academic complexes was named after Millard Fillmore, and it was just a lot of issues with that. But once the pandemic happened, they decided to change it. And once there was a national uprest and uproar with racism and the things that transpired that year. But eventually I decided to major in African American history. Oh, goodness. So I majored in African American history, was told that I wasn't doing well in a class because of my majoring in African American history. And eventually that same professor told me that I would not be on set to graduate. Graduated with 3 degrees, bachelor's and master's in public health, African American studies bachelor, and now I'm a first-year medical student. And I guess one of the things that I would recommend with the reparations is to consider, like, with given the National Department of Education, just having resources specifically for Black people, especially knowing what has happened with affirmative action, and making sure that Black people have adequate healthcare resources, because Medicaid and Medicare sometimes just aren't enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Croft. Derek Hilson.
How you guys doing?
Hello.
How y'all doing tonight? All right. I'm from Niagara Falls, New York. I'm listening to everybody in the room, and African proverb. He has a quote that he says, "Until the lion learns how to read and write, the hunter will forever tell the story." And what I hear when I hear that is that I see that it's a lot of emotion with us in here because of what we've come through, what we understand about where we come from. There's a lot of emotion. But sometimes, as we know in our own communities, emotions can sometimes blur the direction that we need to go into. And basically what I'm saying by that is that we're talking about reparations, and we're talking about receiving this money. $4.7 trillion, right? This person that we're looking to receive the money from has spilled more blood on the earth than any other nation on this earth, right? There's a lot of emotions here. But what I want my people to understand is that how I got my start, where I come from, it ain't conventional, and I'll say it like that, right? But I had to learn how to read and write and educate myself. So we can get these bills and we can get these things and we can look at them and we can go by brick, piece by piece, piece by piece. But if we're illiterate to what it is saying, then we're not going to get anywhere. We're going to receive the money and we're going to give it back to the racist merchants, and then they're going to fill those checks out that continue to educate their kids to continue to lead the free world. So while we're sitting here worried about our history, and I'm not saying history is not important, while we're sitting here worried about our history, we have people dictating our future. So we have to be a step ahead. We have to educate ourselves. Minister Farrakhan says to me, because I'm from Nation of Islam, he says to me that the biggest thing we did and needed to learn from Black Wall Street is that we were in our own community, so we were forced to confront ourselves with our problems. They believe or taught that integration may have been the worst thing that actually happened to us, because we started to integrate with white problems when we already had Black problems. And what I want to say is that we can read the jargon that they give us, but if we don't comprehend it, we're not going to get anywhere. We can get this money and we can give it away. We give it right back to them. But we need to understand how the money works. We need to understand how to protect the money. And we can't rely on them to create systems for us. Because let's be real. This man doesn't want to give us his money. This is why we are fighting for it. If they felt bad for what they did, we wouldn't fight for it. If it was justified in their eyes for real, we wouldn't have to fight for it. So because we are fighting for it, it is important for us to protect it and find ways to protect it. So what I would suggest is that you need people that are like-minded like me, like-minded like some of the brothers that I heard speak, some of the women I heard speak, that are from these communities, that's really gonna sit there and advocate for our grandmothers that may not understand what is going on now because they're from a different time frame. Advocate for our cousins, our family that dropped out of high school, that may not know how to read and write, that may get this money and pour it back into the hand of the racist merchants. And I just want to say, I understand everybody's emotions, but let's not let emotions stop where we need to go.
Absolutely. Thank you. Just want to acknowledge all of those that stayed until the end process. We are down to the last two. We want to thank you for being here and committing your time tonight for this important conversation. The next to last person is Brother Winstead. If you're still here, you are next. And then after that, Sean Bankston, you'll be the last speaker for tonight.
Thank you very much. Peace and blessings, everyone. My comments are really short. We have a great task before us. And reparations, well, first of all, honor to those who are putting in the work, those who are members of this committee. I'm familiar with a few of them on the commission. How you doing, Sister Linda? And those of us who've been working to repair the damages that have been done that we are experiencing in this country. Repair is our responsibility, so let's keep the responsibility where it needs to be. If damages have been done, and they have, we need to know what is our role in contributing to those damages. We need to perhaps address them first. And thank you for all of the recommendations that have come forth. But in order for us to repair, I believe it is our responsibility on both sides, but it's the community's responsibility to repair. If we do not repair the cultural degradation, if we do not repair our values, if we do not repair our worldview, nothing else, in my opinion, will result in a balanced repair. This is generational work. It is intergenerational, so I concur, I agree with the comments that were made that it is just not our generation. However, our generation may be able to establish a foundation and do something important for the future of our community. And so I'm grateful for those who are far visionary, who are not just seeing this moment, but seeing generations. Somebody said 7 generations. And so if it took this long for us to get here, it would take much longer for us to get out. And we do not want to leave out any one person, any one period of time, particularly in this country, because we are steeped in it, we are made aware of it, we are made constantly aware of our inadequacy and our damaged self. And we need to repair so we can see a new self, a one who can imagine and who can build, not shackled to just what happened in the past, enslavement, but beyond the BC, the before we were enslaved. Thank you. And so repair is the African responsibility. It is beyond, it is a great responsibility, and it is beyond just this generation. It is for future generations to address the damages and the repair of our people. And with that, I really appreciate this moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Winstead. Last speaker of the night, and I want to just announce that the public comment section is now closed. And I want to thank you again for being here tonight. Thank you, Buffalo, for standing in strong and coming strong. You certainly have set the standard with the first reparations public hearing. And so thank you. And with that, we'll make room for Sean Bankston. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Number one, thank you for all of this. I want to give a round of applause for everyone who's here
Yes.
and for yourselves. I think that the one thing that we can do is take action and use our time and use our influence to do stuff like this. And as I'm sitting here listening to all these stories, I have all these emotions, right? And one of the things I wanted to share is the testimony and also to my ideologies about how reparations can help. So a little bit about my background. I'm born and raised here in Buffalo. Moved all the way from downtown Buffalo to Lanefields and ended up starting my own business out of Lanefield Projects. That business expanded to multiple different cities through the help of a lot of different people, especially in the Buffalo area. And one of the things that I realized is when I come across, I think one of the gentlemen mentioned it, I got access to money and I messed it up multiple different times because no one was there to teach me how to make that money continuously work for myself. So I think that, reparations would be an ongoing conversation, but if we give fools money, my mom always said, fools and their money will soon depart, right? So I was that fool. And so I've learned, and so one of the things I think would be a great process is having that wealth given to our descendants in the form of a business structure. We're in a capitalistic society, and if we don't play the game, we'll eventually get voted out of it. Right, and so I think that we shouldn't just give reparations without there being a process for mentorship for our youth who are probably 1 and 2 and 3 years old now on how to keep that money. I think that would be one of the things. And one of the other things I was looking at, I actually went to Tennessee. I think it was Franklin, Tennessee. I went on the plantation of Andrew Johnson. And that experience alone, I had to pay for that tour too, right? $10 or something for the tour. They're making money off of the history of probably one of my grandmothers or grandfathers. And it made me, I walked through the house, they said you can't film inside. My first question is I'm gonna do it anyway, right? My first thought, right? I did, because I wanted to remember that moment. And when I walked through this mansion that had this beautiful house, I walked down this trail and I stood behind the slave's house and I sat and I looked at this slave's bed and I said, this is crazy that their home is as small as the front porch. And it inspired me for real estate. And so I say this is because all the money that we're owed is eventually going to go back into this country. And if we don't teach us how to keep it, it'll be lost again. And so that one thing inspired me. I said, there's no way that, this man can have this beautiful home. And there's one last thing I'll leave it with. There was a painting that was painted when he was on his deathbed. And they tried to paint the black people out of it. And I heard the story. All right? And you can see the picture painted where the black people were not there. And in the description it says, there were black people standing on the porch looking inside on his deathbed. And so I think it's important, that we consider the importance of the finances coming in and getting into real estate and allowing that to, stay in the hands of people who actually take care of it. So thank you, everybody. Round of applause for yourselves, and God bless everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep. So this meeting tonight was live streamed, and all you had to do was go to our website and click Watch Now. So all of our meetings of the working meetings and our public hearings will and are live streamed and are recorded and available on the website. So Buffalo, as you walk away, I just want to say thank you so much, Buffalo, for showing up and for providing intelligent, passionate comments and recommendations for us to do. But this isn't it. Buffalo, we still need you to be involved in this process, so stay connected. We appreciate you all. God bless, and good night.
Thank you, Buffalo.
Thank you, Buffalo.